throw hands.
That happened.
I don't know what's actually, yeah, I don't know actually. Either way, I'm like, okay, so I'm only teaching physics, chemistry, and biology, and I gotta take typo. I gotta learn how to fight in the parking lot. That's what I gotta do now. Just wondering.
Okay, it is 5:07. Call to order. I'd like to make a motion that we begin in prayer and then the pledge. And second, all those in favor?
This is a public meeting, separation of church and state.
No, it's not.
No, I'm the Giants.
I did motion, and you seconded.
I say no.
All right, no.
Not here in the back. No.
Yes.
I'm also a no.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Huh.
Jim.
Dear Heavenly Father, God, can my mic on? Can you guys hear me? I know you were having a hard time a second ago. It's not on. Hello?
He's gonna.
He's coming. Oh, sorry. Eli, will you repeat the motion fully?
It's clarified?
A motion to swap agenda item 11 and 3.
Can you read it out, please?
So, 3 is approval of closed session agenda as presented.
Which I think you made a motion for. Did you not, Mrs. Clifford, make a motion for approval of closed session agenda already?
No. No, I have not.
Yes, you did.
No one seconded it.
Nobody did.
I'll second.
Nobody.
Right, 11 is approval of the open session agenda as presented. So you want to reverse that?
Yes. Didn't we just do this at the last board meeting, go over which way we're gonna have these? And you want them reversed, and now you want to reverse them again?
Well, he wants to.
He made a motion. We made the motion for
You made a motion for approval.
Follow the agenda.
Prior.
Who's trying to deny that people can't speak? What they're trying to do. So everybody will go home.
Is Mr. Wallace then seconded the motion of switching
Correct.
item 11 with
No.
3?
No, Madam, the first motion was made is the approval of closed session agenda as presented by Madam President. So, Mr. Wallace, are you seconding that motion? That motion was what was on the table to begin with?
Yes, I am.
Madam President, you can ask for
Then we can vote.
You can ask for comments and discussion with the board trustees, and then you can take a vote.
Say that again.
The motion, it was moved by you to approve approval of closed session agenda as presented. It was seconded by Mr. Wallace. So now you can
Oh,
ask
so
for...
he's approving me,
Yeah.
not Eli.
Exactly, and so now you can ask for discussion within the trustees. If no discussion, you can take a vote.
Yes, I did.
So why are you then?
Well,
you
because they
wanting to-
made a motion and I want to consider them.
I can make a motion that we go fly a rocket to the moon. It's not very realistic, and you're in essence.
I mean, you have to have it seconded. I second. So we're discussing.
We're trying to listen to the board, and this is not time for public comments, please. Now that there is a motion on the table, there was a second on that motion, there was discussion, you can still have discussion within the board, not for public comment, and then if there's no more discussion, we need to take a vote on the motion that's on the table.
I don't know.
Maybe we can ask for clarification from Eli of why he wants to change these.
I want to. I don't want to do these ones first. I want to do the other ones first. That's mine.
And what's your motivation for changing the agenda at
I
this
don't.
point?
I don't.
Excuse me, but the discussion is on the motion. It is not on Eli's motion right now. The discussion needs to be held for the motion that is there.
Restate the motion.
The motion that's on the table is approval of closed session agenda as presented.
Correct.
Right. All right, no more discussion. I guess I'll vote no.
No.
What does no mean?
It means if we're not gonna approve the closed session at this time, we're gonna move on and reverse it afterward.
But you made the motion.
No public comment, please.
Yeah.
If they're voting no, so I guess that means I have to vote a yes, because I think we're doing it incorrectly.
I would also vote yes.
Okay. So the noes have it, so your motion now.
You swap agenda item 3 with 11.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I said.
Discuss.
Were you asking for name?
She said discussion.
The situation is that number, sorry, age is catching up. Number 3 is the approval of closed session agenda as presented. And you have items that are in closed session. You're going to have to approve the closed session agenda before you go into closed session to go over those items. So what I see is that number 3, it's okay to move it between 5 and 6, but you can't have it on 11 because you would already have gone into closed session and discussed those items before you even approved them on the agenda.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So the motion is to switch them.
Well, we're not going so, and after 5, you can put it after 5.
Yes, you can put it
You
after
can put it
5.
after 5. So
Put 3
after 5, and he can move that, he can move the one.
Does he want to withdraw his motion and change it?
Yes, if you, that's what he said, you can withdraw it and you can put it after 5.
The minutes need to reflect that Eli made that request. If I can just have that so that Eli, I can make it that you did track your
Yeah,
motion.
I will withdraw my motion.
If it would, sorry,
Switch 6 to 11.
if it would please the board, I do know there are a couple of people out here that I could ask and probably get a better understanding of this, if you care to do that. Lori Adams?
The public has the right to speak to the agenda that you're going to be discussing in closed session. If you change the approval to after the public comment, they don't have that opportunity.
Right.
So it's good to just approve it and move on and then report out later what you did.
The second person that I would turn to, just kind of give me the nod, but I'm not quite sure of why Eli, what the reasoning behind that. It's basically, you have to have the opportunity for public comment before you go into closed session.
Yes.
So,
I have to know what you're going to talk about.
and you have to approve the agenda prior to that for closed session.
There's one public comment.
regarding that for open session and closed session agenda items.
And then there'll be a
And
public.
then there will be another public comment for stuff that doesn't have anything to do with stuff on the agenda.
Right.
The public comment on item number 4 is specific to closed session items.
Where does it
No,
say that?
no.
It says it under the item.
No, it's gonna be public comment for open and closed. It's gonna be for anything they want.
Should be.
Is it?
Yeah, anything they
Is
want.
that where,
Whatever you
is
wanna
that
yell
posted
about.
on the,
That's not what it says.
It is on the one I have that I print out, so.
Public regarding the items are listed on the closed session agenda.
The question I have is that as the agenda reads, you have approval of closed session, then you go into public comment. Then you go into, which to me is an open agenda item, VP 2120. But you still have to have the public comment before you recess into closed session. So the question I have is the number 4, the public comment. Can the public comment both on VP 2120 item and on closed session, or it's more or less the order of public comment that I'm giving a little advice on?
because that's not.
So you might.
Suzanne Barrymore, California School Boards Association, North State Public Affairs Community Engagement Representative. So as long as you have public comment on every item,
Right.
you're okay. I'm not clear what Mr. Haynes' objective is in moving 3 around or 4 around. But as long as you're clear that public comment is occurring for number 3 and number 5 before you go into number 6, okay, it's a little confusing, but
So we're gonna start over with a new motion. What's your motion?
Withdraw, and make a motion to swap agenda item 11 with 6. Between 5 and 6.
I did exactly what was in the email. Word for word, capitalization, punctuation, lowercase, numbers, parentheses, you name it. I did it exactly like I was It's very hard for this district, and I don't want this to be on my name that I created it incorrectly, because I did not.
It's not that, it's not about.
I hope not.
Saying that if it's
I'm trying not to, but I feel like it's being directed at me, that I'm blocking something that I'm not blocking.
We have to learn this stuff on our own because.
No,
we're
I
not
can help you
provided
because I'm very good at it.
provided training.
I have offered training and it has not been responded, and I would love to work with you because I'm actually very good at this, Cheryl. I'm very good at what I do. I'm very good at the agenda. I am not against you, and just so people know, I'm very committed to doing what is right for you guys. The 3 of you, I'm very committed to bringing you on, bringing you up to speed, and being your secretary as well.
Thank you. Let's try to get back to the agenda. Please.
All right, so what are you moving that we do? So do we do it in the same order, except,
Just sorry, Madam President, just one final word of advice. I just recommend that you approve as the agenda states, and as long as you make sure that you're allowing public comment at the right places. I think that the worst that would happen is we're out of order. It'd have to be, basically, we'd have to be saying that we won't do that again. I mean, but it's allowing public comment at the right places would be my recommendation.
okay, are you making a motion again or what?
You need to make it again?
Yeah, I'm still not sure what, I'm about to go to 3 and make a motion to approve closed session agenda.
Speak in the mic.
I'd like to make a motion for 11 between 5 and 6.
11.
Approval of open session agenda as presented, that's 11.
Point of order for clarification. Okay. Point of order.
All right. We're going to pause and take a recess.
Point of order.
So you can go talk in secret?
For the board to go into a room and clarify this so that Miss, so that,
That's a public meeting.
I want to support the president in her getting her thoughts about her. So if we do that, I have no voice
No,
at this
the point of
table
order.
other than trying to keep clarity.
This was totally unexpected for me.
You created.
Proof that we're not
Control.
talking about what it means.
She didn't know about the motion.
Anything about this.
So how,
Why not leave it alone?
she didn't know about the motion, so why don't you give her a chance to get clarification so it can be done properly so that we don't get attacked for not following the rules? Right? Wouldn't that be the responsible thing to do, to make sure we're doing it correctly before we do it?
I would assume.
Point of order.
We're recessing for 10 minutes.
You need to address myself first.
Same as whispering.
No.
You're not recognizing me?
Oh my God.
I have a point of order. I want a clarification. So we're gonna have public comment on closed session, and we're gonna have public comment on open agenda items at the same time?
That's what I planned.
Bullshit.
Is there a rule against it?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand what you
Is
said.
there a rule against it?
I don't think it's correct. I think we're going against the California School Board Association's agenda items, how they present it, and they do that for a reason.
You can go into closed session and discuss it.
Apparently, it's a legal matter, and that's something we should be discussing in closed session.
The board is taking a 10-minute recess.
Resign. Resign.
And that's,
Well, we can't be inaugurated.
not yet.
You're doing awesome.
Sit right side up.
Do the shuffle. Oh, thank you. Pardon me. No worries.
No problem.
I'm glad you took the camera off the tripod. That got him back here.
Going back to order.
Do this in correct procedure, but I see the need, as Mr. Haynes pointed out, I do understand why the idea to move item number 11 will become number 3, so the approval of the open session agenda. Item number 5 will move to number 4. So item 5 is an actual open agenda item, VP 2120. Then item number 3, the approval of closed session, will then become number 5. Item 4 will become, which is public comment for closed session, will become number 6. And then the rest we will continue to renumerate items for the remainder of the agenda. That's my recommendation, if you want to make that motion. Yes, I can certainly go through that one more time. So right now, we've gone through items 1 and 2. And so the motion, based on my recommendations, if you're moving number 11, which is the approval of open agenda session agenda as presented, you're moving that to number 3.
Yeah, and then 3 becomes 4, 4 becomes 5.
No, hold on. Then item 5 becomes number 4.
Yes.
Because it is an open agenda item, so it's going to follow the approval of open session agenda.
Yes.
Then, well, you can ask for public comment within that item as well,
Okay.
right at that
That's what
time.
we want.
Yeah, and then it will follow public comment for anything that's on closed session, or sorry, I'm confusing myself. Yeah, we got a tag team here going, but basically you will approve the closed session agenda item, then you'll have public comment on any of the closed session agenda items, then you'll go to closed session.
Yes.
But basically, right now, 1, 2, 11, and 5 would be the order.
I got my notes straight. I think it makes sense. It makes sense.
All right, we're making a motion to move item 11 to number 3. Item 5 moves to number 4. Item 3 becomes number 5. Item 4 becomes number 6. And continue to renumerate items for the remainder of the agenda minus item 11.
Just let us know what item
Is there a
we're
second?
going to, please,
We will.
as we do. I'm still confused.
Do I hear a second? All right, let's vote. Yes.
For clarity, this will fall in the minutes under item number 3 as a motion made by the president in addressing the closed session agenda, and she's making a motion to change the agenda. And so as Steve and her just read it, we'll reflect that in the minutes as her motion. Yes? Because Dale and Phil asked what item they were on.
And I'd still like that each time we come up, want to know which one we're talking about, so I'll go to do whatever you're doing.
Okay, so it's seconded by Mr. Wells. Who seconded it?
I said,
Oh, Eli seconded it. Okay, so we'll vote. All those in favor, say yes.
Right?
hi.
Aye. It's a unanimous. Okay, so we'll go to 11.
It's all the procedures they have to follow. Yeah.
And so let's go to the next person.
Good evening, Board. President Clifford, my name is Adam Preston, I'm a lawyer. I'm here with the Swanson Law Office, and I represent the Gateway Citizens Committee. Here to speak about 2120, and to speak about a number of other items on your agenda, both in the open session and the closed session. So, since I have the opportunity to speak now regarding 2120, my comments pertain to that, as well as the other items, I'm going to take this opportunity to speak to that.
Is his mic on?
Is it on?
That's there.
Debbie, can we start the clock?
Just pause. Just pause.
As you know, the California Brown Act requires a number of very important considerations with regard to open meetings. And you know that, and I know that you know that, because on the 2 weeks ago, the Brown Act appears to have been violated when you did not allow public comment with regard to a number of items on your agenda. And my clients are very concerned about that. What we want to see is that you follow the Brown Act. And I applaud you because last week you took action to rectify that mistake. And you nullified the actions that you took. And you agreed unanimously to follow the Brown Act going forward. I applaud that. And I hope you stand by those words because they're very important words which you agreed. And importantly, you did not agree to just follow part of the Brown Act. You agreed to follow the entire Brown Act. So you can't pick and choose on the Brown Act in which part you're going to follow. Brown Act requires not only that you allow public comment, but that you allow the public to observe your deliberations. You work for these people, so they are entitled to see you at work, not in some back alley, not in a meeting that occurs without their ability to observe you, except for in very rare circumstances. That means you can't meet even with a quorum of you outside the group. You can't have a meeting of two and then have another meeting with another person about a board item. That would be a serial board meeting. That is also illegal under the Brown Act. And it carries with it criminal prosecution penalties, including misdemeanor charges that can be levied for such violation. I know you don't want to do that.
You do.
I know you don't want to do that. I hope you don't. But it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. Right? The concern that we have is that you have been violating that policy. And what you have now done is you have now enacted or now elected to eliminate 2120, which was the process by which you decide which and who or how to appoint a superintendent. Now you are going to be without that policy, and how are you going to do it? Because you are going to sit in your back room and decide what characteristics you're going to follow in deciding how that person should be appointed. That is a Brown Act violation. Do not do that. My clients have served on you a number of Public Record Act requests, and they're going to see whether or not any serial meetings have occurred. They're going to see what communications have occurred that have led to the creation of item 18, which is the approval of a contract. That contract did not grow out of the ground in the rain. Somebody created it. I'm willing to bet, or at least assume, until proven otherwise, that somebody met with somebody who put that agreement together. President Clifford, how did that agreement occur? I know you're not going to answer me because you don't have to, but the group would like to hear that, and your silence will be telling. We are prepared to instigate litigation to ensure that the Brown Act is followed by this group with regard to the appointment, with regard to how this contract occurred, and whether any violations of the Brown Act occurred with regard to this. We're also prepared to hold you to your policy or hold you to a policy that is publicly discussed before created, before you go and determine how the superintendent is going to be appointed to this school district. Thank you.
Trustees, I feel compelled to voice my concern and advise you during this meeting. Please indulge me for a minute as I share personal information that helps clarify my message. My father served in the Merchant Marines during World War II. The ship he served on was attacked and fought off Japanese Zeros on different occasions. Under President Reagan, Merchant Marines serving during World War II were finally recognized as veterans. My two brothers and I served in 3 different branches of the armed forces during the Vietnam War era. My son served in Special Forces for 6.5 years this past decade. I am proud of my family's service, and I am proud that I continue to serve the public in education going on 39 years. Madam President, another personal note that I will share with you because it is close to your heart. My wife and I are Christians. I share this information with you in hopes that my loyalty to my faith, my country, this district, and to the duties of my current position will not be questioned. I would like the Board of Trustees to understand, I am not your adversary, I am your advisor. As I have shared with you on more than one occasion via email, the duties of the superintendent include informing and advising the school board. Yesterday I sent emails to all trustees as well as direct emails to you, Madam President. I urge you to postpone any decisions that will put this district and yourselves at risk of future liability. As you are aware, Lozano Smith attorneys at law have chosen to no longer represent us. Let me have the time to find and contract unbiased, objective legal counsel that will represent the district and all of the trustees. California is one of the states in which school trust districts may be sued and may pay damages for wrongful acts, including negligence of district officers and employees. While board members are not held liable for the acts or omissions of their district, they can be held personally liable for their own wrongful conduct in certain circumstances. As many of you know, I will be retiring in a few months, maybe even sooner if forced. I have nothing personally to gain by speaking tonight. I detest the idea that trustees may be listening to ill advice from others that seek personal gain. I fear that the advice some of you may be receiving may lead to personal liability and legal stress. In my current role, I am here to help serve the board. I am not your adversary. Please consider the advice I sent to you via email and postpone your decisions until we can secure legal counsel. Thank you for your consideration.
Since you are not going to follow the board guidelines, and since it appears you have a contract ready to gift wrap, who did the search? How many people were contacted? How was it advertised? And who followed up on the qualifications of the applicant? Somebody did it. It didn't just appear. The contract can't just appear. One of you three, I know it wasn't those two, one of you three were doing it. And the contract's evidently ready to go. So how does that happen? How does that happen in a school district with a board that's supposed to do its business in the open? How does it happen that 3 new members of the board get elected, come in, fire the old district, and hire a new one in record time, and nobody knows who it is, how it is, or how it was done? So you're going to have to answer those questions. And I don't think the answers are going to be very flattering for you. I think that the attorney that came up here and advised you that there's problems, and this gentleman now who's told you that there may be legal issues, they're right. And, you know, I don't care about you personally. I don't. I care about the kids. The chaos that you're creating in this community is bad for kids. That's why this and that's all I have to say. I mean, if you're only going to protect yourselves, at least stop and protect yourselves. That'll help all of us. But if you don't care about yourselves and you don't care about the kids, go ahead and do what you're going to do. But I think it's going to create real problems, not just for you, but for a lot of people.
Shasta Lake School, 3rd grade teacher. I'm here to try and understand what is happening to our district. So many changes in such a short period of time. I'm hoping that maybe one of the 3 of you can explain this to me and to the rest of us. What are we as a school district doing that you find so wrong that you feel the need to make so many changes? I would also like to know why you made a purpose of changing the time of the board meeting so all could attend, and then you scheduled a special board meeting at 11 o'clock, and none of us could come. We're teachers, there's no subs. And we're not gonna walk out on our kids. Regardless of what you think of me, we are not gonna walk out on our kids. They're not just, I just want you guys to understand, I don't know a teacher that doesn't love her students like they're our own. We would die for our kids if there was a shootout. We would die for every one of your kids. We love our kids. None of this is helping our kids. I would also, now I want to share something with you that was written on Facebook. And I'm not paraphrasing it. I'm not reading the full quote. I need as many citizens as possible to show up early. to fill up that boardroom before the libtards do. Really? Is that what we are now? We're calling names? I don't know who wrote that. I don't care who wrote it. But we're better than that. What are we teaching our kids? This is not what we want to teach our kids. I am aware that there are people that back you, that think you've been treated unfairly. And I know you think you've been treated unfairly. But in fairness to our staff, our communities, and our parents, we had and still have no idea why Jim Harrell was fired. We don't know. We don't know why you came in and felt the need to vote yourselves in to the offices without really getting to know how to run a board. I'm not opposed to you being the board president at all. I'm opposed to the fact that we are a laughingstock once again because we don't know what we're doing. Mrs. Clifford, I have a question for you. I don't know that you'll answer me, but I'm going to ask you anyway. As president, what is your vision for our district? Where do you see us in a year? What do you want for us? What do you want for our kids? Do you want to answer? Okay. I would also like you to explain why you changed your mind about public schools. Mr. Haynes said that those remarks were made in the past. I absolutely agree with him. They were. And he is correct. They were made in the past. So when exactly did you change your mind? The last thing I would like to address is the appointment of a new superintendent. At the last board meeting, you agreed that there would be a survey released to staff, community members, and parents. Where's the survey? It's not come out. You're okay. I would also ask that you table. Your appointment of a superintendent and sit down with our community and give us your vision. We have all worked very hard to make this district.
Your overtime.
I'm aware. I am aware.
Well, sum it up, please.
I am. I'm almost done.
We waited for you.
We have all worked very hard to make this Gateway a district that we can be proud of and that we send our kids to. And in the last month or two, it's not that anymore. You need to understand, we as teachers, we are human. This whole chaotic mess has caused us a lot of stress. I have cried every day since. You can stop now.
Your time is up. No, go to the next person, please.
I have cried
No,
every day since you fired Jim
your time
Harrell.
is up. You've had twice the amount. Your time is up.
Excuse me, let's maintain order.
I'd like to talk next.
Oh, weird.
Maintain order, please. Let people talk.
You don't even go here.
Again.
You guys don't even know who I am, and I had to.
Point of order.
This is. I know there's some great
Person at a
teachers
time,
here,
please. One person at
but
a
holy
time.
cow! I hope to God that the people that are here acting like misbehaved children are not in charge of our children.
Yeah, you have to
Before your
address the
time
board.
starts,
Okay, sorry.
address
I'm
your
got somebody
comments.
snap in my face right now. Sorry.
Address your comments to the board, and as I stated in my advice to this board will be to clear the room if we cannot maintain
Thank you.
order.
Oh, you're so obnoxious.
That I've been to 3. The only one I didn't make was 11 o'clock. I was under the understanding that was the lawyer that set that time. By the way, it was the only time that they could meet at. And so that wasn't a choice. In fact, at the last meeting I was at the town hall, it was these board members that were arguing with those board members on having evening meetings, and they didn't want to have it. They kept trying to argue with them over that. They're the ones that wanted the evening meetings that we could all be here. So thank you for that. Let me clarify that. Here's another thing. I had a couple lawyers come up here making assumptions. I have my paralegal degree. Maybe I need to go on and get my lawyer degree, because guess what? That's unethical. You can't make assumptions and accuse people of things. You have to go off proof, evidence, facts. So that's enough on that. Here's the other thing. What do we want to change? All the indoctrination and the political crap. You want to say don't make this political? Everything that our children are teaching or learning right now is almost all political.
What?
So please don't say that this is not political. I'm talking. So anyway, I am so sorry for the way you guys have been treated. You have not been given the opportunity to be brought in. You've been brought into a hostile environment. You were voted in. I have to repeat it again. You guys were voted in. Again, decorum. Voted, 2 were in and 1 ran without, you should have ran. Should have ran, huh? Then you guys wouldn't be here. They're here because parents are fed up. They're fed up with what the kids, the COVID crap, all this sexualization of our children. And yes, it is in the schools, and I do have proof. So anyway, I'm just want to encourage you guys, try to get the training as soon as possible, because that doesn't help. They're looking at for any reason to pounce on you, and they're just laughing at you and heckling. Don't give them any reason. Get that training as soon as possible. There are good people who are rooting for you, who care about you, who are praying for you, and they want you well trained. We want you guys to succeed, and so let's get that training. Hey, I'm praying for you guys, and I'm really sorry. This is embarrassing. This is my hometown and my home district, and I hope we can all figure this out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Louis. I am a enrolled Pitt River member. My child is a member of the Gabriel Unified School District at Grand Oaks. I think I completely don't agree with like getting rid of all input from the community members, from teachers, to hire a new superintendent. By doing those things, you circumvent a lot of things that you might disagree with or things that aren't right. By excluding the community, you are putting yourselves in a position to hire people potentially who might not be good. The reason I'm here specifically, because I haven't seen no names yet of who the contract is for. People bring up a lot of good issues about how it got made. All that other people will speak on that. You guys are doing excellent. But the reason I'm here is because if someone like Brian Caples is to be a superintendent, I'm completely against that. His statements against Native Americans, unprompted racism, racist prejudice, at the very least, perpetuating ugly stereotypes. My son's 11, my other child is 17. They've done nothing to warrant those types of comments about, they're the reasons that, our wives can't go out and get milk at 8 at night because they're, fear of being mugged. And again, I don't even know if that's who you guys are trying to hire, but the fact that people like that can be rumored to be put in simply because we're not getting input from the community is not right. Even talking about segregating Native children, they shouldn't be in a classroom with 30, 35 other children. That's ugly, that's evil, that's hateful. My son is every year is a student of the month, wherever he's at. He excels. My other child as well. They've done nothing to deserve that. I don't want to get too much into it, but this Gateway Unified School District, Toyon was a reservation up there. My sons, on his mom's side, his grandpa and his great uncle were woken up at gunpoint to tear down their place. After they already took off the water, they took out the electricity, and I like to tell my children, I'm very proactive in the community. I've done cultural competency for the sheriffs. I've been an educator for many years in the Gateway Unified School District. I've done cultural presentations for Shasta Lake, SLS, Central Valley High School, Grand Oaks. But I like to say things are getting better. Things that his grandpa had to deal with are not going on. And the fact that this could potentially be happening is why I'm here today, and I hope you guys at least take the input of the people that we have here.
My name is Steve. I've lived in Shasta Lake since 1978. My kids.
Give us your last name too.
Carter. Yes, my kids, my grandkids, all have come to school out here. And if I live long enough, my great grandkids are not that far away from attending school right here in Gateway. I started seeing stuff on the news of what's going on here. And my daughter started telling me what's going on. And it troubled me. It troubled me. What troubles me is the signs that are here tonight. What tells me is the heckling that's taking place in the audience. They seem to want you to be held to a standard they don't want to be held to. And that's wrong. Okay? They shouldn't be doing what they're doing. Every one of you represent all of us, and we don't agree with them. We want you to do the best job you could do, all of you, for our kids. We want things done in the school district that will stop the wokeism that's swarming through our country. We don't want it here, okay? Maybe some of these people do, I don't. I want our children taught the 3 R's, writing, reading, and arithmetic. Keep the social stuff out of our schools. That's our job as grandmother. Their job as grandparents, as parents and grandparents. Not the schools, not the school unions, not them, it's us. That's where it belongs, that's where it stays. Please, take the programs that you've been encouraged to take. Get your attorney. Take the courses you need to take. Your school district. Talk to other people in the school district. Happy Valley might be a good one. And talk to them and get input about what you can do, what you should do. I support you. I'm not afraid to say that. I encourage you, don't be discouraged. There's a lot of people upset and angry. I see that. But just do what you know you need to do. Tell people why you're doing it. I agree with that. Speak out. Don't be afraid to say we're doing this because. There's a lot of people making accusations here that I have found no basis of their accusations. They're warning you of stuff that I don't see you've already done. You already said it and went back and changed something because you said, oops, I thank you for that, okay? I want you to keep doing that as you move forward, but get what you need to do this thing right so they can't keep throwing stones at you and hollering you at the board meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To the public that they hold their comments on other issues and remind everybody that there is a motion and it's seconded for BP 2120. So I'm just trying to get the focus back that is what people should be commenting on at this time is the motion.
I don't know if my comments are specific to that, but it is specific to having the right person. My name is Becky Tillman-Nail. I'm an educator for 29 years, including...
We just finished telling you that you have to confine it to the motion that's being made. So you're going off on something else right off the bat.
No, she wasn't.
If I can clarify, do you feel comfortable waiting until public comment or closed session on what you're discussing?
Yes, I do, but it is specific to making sure it is the right person for this district.
That's 21.
Go ahead.
My name is Becky Tillman-Nail. I'm an educator for 29 years, including in a small role in this district. I'm a product of Gateway Schools from kindergarten through 12th grade. Really though, my time with Gateway began much earlier and extended much longer. As parents, we take our children to local schools early for things like sporting events, carnivals, and even just to walk the track. My parents did this for me and my sister. It was the first time we experienced community outside of our immediate family, where we felt known, heard, and loved. Later in life, one of my close Central Valley High School friends had a child diagnosed with leukemia. Gateway administration opened town hall for us to gather and support this family on their journey of healing. More recently, I had the privilege of serving in education in an outreach program at Central Valley High School. I saw the same dedication, commitment, and compassion and the staff that I experienced as a student here. As educators, we teach academics, but more importantly, we model and teach children to be good people, to be kind, honest, respectful, and to use their voice in honest dialogue when they feel something is wrong. I see none of those good character qualities in what has happened recently, from the steamrolling of a very minor agenda 5 days before Christmas to not allowing anyone a voice. What I see here is deception, disrespect, dishonesty, and a lack of real dialogue. I am also a Christian. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. In this instance, love includes hearing others' voices and respecting their input. Regardless of where you stand on what has been happening the last few years in our world and our community, what is happening in this form is not right. The people that are here that are upset have not had their voices heard. They are honest, respectable people who have sacrificed teachers and community members for years. I grew up in Lakehead. I can attest to this. The sacrifice and service of the people in this community, the people in this room are who helped raise me, and they're still doing the same thing, most of them in their 80s and 90s. So for those voices not to be heard concerns me. Please hear their voices.
My name is Anna. I'm a 2016 graduate of Central Valley High School and a 2020 graduate of the United States Merchant Marine Academy.
What's your last name?
My name is Anna Lewis. And a 2020 graduate of the United States Merchant Marine Academy, one of our nation's 5 federal service academies. I'm a lieutenant junior grade in the United States Naval Reserve, and I currently serve as a second officer as navigator and operations officer on a forward deployed naval supply ship. In my job, I'm beholden to the United States Code of Federal Regulations, the CFRs. Before I took any leadership position on my vessel, I knew how to do my job. I had the training, and I knew the rules and laws as they pertain to me. Notice I said before I took over in a leadership position. Last week, Mrs. Haynes, you came to me after the meeting and told me that you had not read the Brown Act, the act that regulates public meetings, in the position that you voluntarily ran for and then you were elected to. You did not know. My question is to the new board members. Have you read the Brown Act? Do you even know the rules that you hold meetings in accordance with? Last week, you testified that you had not committed any Brown Act violations other than the ones that you've previously been accused of, cured, and now corrected. Have you read the Brown Act in the last week? I have. Since your bumbling earlier clearly shows that you have not read the Brown Act, that you do not know how to run a public meeting. You have been in office for over a month and elected to this office for 2. It is gross negligence on your part and ignorance of knowledge of the Brown Act and what it contains is inexcusable. Your ignorance is inexcusable. By motioning to bypass 2120, that is another direct violation because you already have a contract made. It says so in the agenda that you have a contract ready to be approved. That is a direct Brown Act violation. Do you have any comment on your current Brown Act violations? Mrs. Clifford, Mr. and Mrs. Haynes, Mr. Lewis, and Mr. Wallace. Your silence is telling, and your ignorance is inexcusable. By bypassing 2120, that is a Brown Act violation. I did your job for you and I read the Brown Act, since you clearly have not. Thank you very much for all of your time.
Suzanne Barrymore, California School Boards Association. I just want to share some things with you that can hopefully be a little bit helpful. As previous speakers have indicated, the motion that's currently on the table is going to be a Brown Act violation if you enact it. You can change policies, but there's a process to that. You have to think of this from the perspective of what's going to be replaced. What are you going to do instead of that policy? you haven't articulated it, you haven't put it in writing so that people have time from an agenda item to take a look at what it is that you're planning to do instead. I'd like to address a quick minute. Lindsay, I've emailed you about this and offered services, both through my organization and just to try and understand if I can find you other services outside of CSB. I'm more than happy to try and do that for you if there's, if that's what you want. The closing to that email about the superintendent search, I said to you, I know this has been a rough start to your term as a school board member and probably not what you had anticipated. And while obviously a lot of folks aren't articulating this to you, everyone, including your critics, wants you and your colleagues on this board to succeed in the governance of Gateway Unified School District. I'm glad to be of whatever assistance I can in helping you to achieve those ends. I also sent all of you 2 other emails with 3 different trainings at 5 different dates, 4 of which are still viable. There is a Brown Act training tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It's virtual. I can probably still get you into that if you guys would like to try and get up to speed sooner rather than later because you have so many issues going on. But to say that you haven't been trained, you've had opportunity, so let's get you on board with that so that you can govern from a place of stability, because I know that's what you want and that's definitely what the community wants. Thank you.
I am a teacher at Shasta Lake School, and I just want to remind you that actions speak louder than words. And the last action you took, you promised to put a survey out. You promised to look for a superintendent in the correct format according to board policy. You are going to lose the respect of anybody in here that you are trying to earn by going back on your word. Our district has been through hell through COVID. Steve has been amazing. I would encourage you to continue to have Steve in the position. He has worked tirelessly to keep our district afloat. And Steve, along with these other 2 gentlemen and Tina, did not fire the majority of our staff when we decided not to vaccinate and not to test. So they are very supportive of teachers and staff in this district. And if you take Steve out of that position, you are going to just send this district spiraling out of control. So you need to think about what you're doing, because you are making a big mistake by pulling Steve out so close to the end of the year.
My name's Jenny O'Connell. I have children. I've had children at Buckeye. I've had children at Rocky Point. I've had them homeschooled in this district. Currently, they're in GEO. I can say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the superintendent definitely supported teachers in what they wanted. I know Rocky Point wasn't forced to do anything when we had kids there. They weren't forced to wear masks. They weren't forced to vaccinate. They weren't forced to test. Once they wanted to lift that, they lifted it, and there were no consequences. If you follow through with not listening to the people, it's not a good idea. Lindsay, do you remember in Bernie the old when Mr. Biker left and we got a new choir teacher and the kids didn't want him there, so all they did was rebel until he left? Like, if you don't listen to the people, you're going to have a mess. If you just bypass the things that are necessary, you're going to have a mess. And none of us want that. I know why you're there. You're there because your daughter wasn't treated right in school. I know you want to change things. If you don't listen to people and you don't do what needs to be done and you don't do the proper channels, no one's going to listen to you for what you want done. And you do want real things done. I've listened to you. You want to do things. You want to help kids who were bullied. I talked to you. But that's not going to happen if you don't listen to your basic people telling you that you're doing a Brown Act violation. You're going to get sued. We're going to make news again for things we shouldn't make news for. I'm really tired of making news for craziness. Can we make news for solutions or doing something amazing? This area makes news way too often for really stupid things. And I really don't want this Brown Act violation to be another one.
I'm going to speak a little loud because I've been standing outside. This room is packed. You did not prepare. You knew that it was going to be a packed room. You knew that you were having over 200 people. You had the opportunity to change and you chose not to. Regarding board policy 2120, do the right thing, folks. There's a board policy in place. Be transparent. Do your business with the public, your community, your teachers, your staff, your parents. Be transparent. I kind of feel like things have already been set in motion and you might feel that way as well. I do want to thank the parents and the staff and the teachers and the past board members that are in attendance as well. There's a tremendous amount of work being done on behalf of our children by the wonderful staff at all levels, administration, educators, classified and support staff, and the professionalism by which they all work together. We would like to see that on this board. We would like to see 5 board members discuss their goals, their visions, and how they choose to obtain them in public. You're very, very quiet up on the dais. We'd like to hear your vision. This disruption you have caused by the unjust firing of Superintendent Harrell can begin to be undone by your commitment to follow board policies, to work cooperatively with your fellow board members, Gateway staff, and families within your attendance communities to recruit and hire an excellent superintendent with full transparency. That's what we expect of you. Quite frankly, I think that's what you expect of yourself. You expect excellence in all areas of education. It's a great superintendent that actually gave that slogan to our district. So I hope you follow in those footsteps. Thank you. And thank you, Steve Henson and Debbie. You guys you continued to try to keep everybody on track and to have them follow the law, and you are so well appreciated.
Good evening, board, and thank you for allowing us all the opportunity to speak. My name is Amanda Smith. I'm a parent to several Gateway children who have all been extremely successful due to the amazing educators, staff, and administrators who run this district. I am beyond excited to be a parent of Gateway. I preach it all of the time. We get so much flack from the rest of the community because, oh, it's CV, oh, it's SLS. I stand with pride for that. So with that, if your mission is to do the best for the district that you have now been elected to serve, if your mission is to do the best for the children, then you want to select the best candidate possible. By doing so, you will use the policies that you already have in place that allow for a large selection process, that allow for many members to provide input, and it not to be done in a silo, behind closed doors, and not in the public view. We all have a voice on this district. You had a voice for your children. You are in the positions because you wanted that voice to matter as well. Do not say that ours don't matter. I want my children to continue to be successful in Gateway, and they are in fear that they will no longer be able to go to the district that they love because of the actions that are happening at this board. It is trickling to the high school, it is trickling to the elementary school. You have caused more pain and disruption than these children have seen in a while. They successfully graduated in 2020. They are successful to graduate as leaders next year, and they are excited to move on to the high school, but now they fear that they won't be able to because they have no idea what is going to happen when they are done being used as political posturing pawns. This is not in the best interest of the children. This is in the best interest of a select group of people who are wanting to posture. If you want to make a difference in the rest of the nation, Do not use our children that you claim to protect as pawns. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Dawn Blocker. I guess it's evening now. My name is Dawn Blocker. I'm a 32 year, I wish 32 years old, special educator who has worked in the Gateway District as well as numerous districts throughout this area. Every time I've gone for a job, there has been a procedure that's followed. They look at my credentials. They see whether or not my credentials are good, whether there's been any kind of negative action against my credentials. They look at my educational background. They look at my references from schools that I was at. I want that to happen. I don't want to work with teachers or board members or superintendents who do not have stellar credentials, who do not have stellar educational background and references. What politics aside, we want the best thing for kids. We want the best educators in those classrooms that there can be. Educators who teach critical thinking, who teach the curriculum as California guidelines recommend, and educators who care about the children. I have never, and I said this many times in my time there at Shasta Lake School, I have never worked in a school, including a full inclusion school in the East Coast, that was as open and willing to work with special education students as that school. That school went out of their way constantly to make sure, and I work with behavior kids, went out of their way constantly to make sure that all children were treated the same, that they had open access. I taught special day class, and most of my classroom was in at least 3 general ed classes during the day, if not more. The teachers were always receptive to them. It was really the best special education environment that I have ever worked in. And once again, I taught in a full inclusion school because of the openness there. I'm concerned about 2120. It raced by there. I'm a fast reader, but I'm not that fast. And so most of the people in here are hearing you make decisions about a policy that we can't even read. What I did see there is that there would be, some fidelity and concerns of, does this person have a clear credential? Do they have a credential that doesn't have any negative marks against it? Do they have a good job reference or a good background, or do they have negative marks on their background that people have made comments about them that they aren't a good choice? None of that is going to be done if 2120 is out. Basically what you're saying is we're going to hire who we hire and we don't want to use any protocol. Or if we do, you don't get to know what it is. I also, in my past, have worked with debate teams and have carried through with Robert's Rules of Order for many, many years. That's something you might also take a look at as you continue here, so that you are able to conduct these meetings with some kind of coherency and not the chaos that we're seeing now. I wish you well. I hope you make the correct decisions for the children and the teachers and the parents of this community. Thank you.
Good evening, board. My name is Rebecca Lewis, and I am a parent of a Central Valley High School senior. I addressed the board a few weeks ago, and we actually are inter-district transfers. We chose to come to this district in part because of the outstanding program that Central Valley High School has, and I stand by that with many of the teachers in the audience here that have had a positive influence on my son. In regards to the board policy, I looked it up on your website because I had a hard time looking at that. And the first sentence that you're choosing to bypass is, the governing board recognizes that it has a direct responsibility to select and employ the superintendent. Can you clarify, is it your intention then to bypass that responsibility? That is one of my questions as you're looking to bypass this policy. If you choose to think differently about that and to adhere to this policy, I would like to strongly encourage that you look at everything, especially as how to involve the community in the certain phases. I was really encouraged at the January 4th meeting when you made a motion to have a survey to engage parents in the community. I was really encouraged by that. I know that there's a lot of concerns in this room. I respect productive dialogue in any conversations around students. I think that can be healthy if we can have productive dialogue. I think a survey can get a lot of different input from a lot of different people. There was a gentleman up here, Lewis, who represented some of the Native students and Native families, and I would like to echo some of his sentiments, knowing that the Gateway School District actually has one of the highest percentage of our Native students in Shasta County, and I think it's really important to make sure that those families are heard, as well as all families from every background. I know that we want to make sure that all of our voices are heard. So I really would, and I know you backtrack some of those motions due to the Brown Act violations, and I understand that. I would ask that maybe you consider re-engaging in that motion that you put forward at that January 4th meeting to have a survey, to seek input, and table your motion to a point tonight to seek community involvement and reconsider bypassing this, reconsider your motion to bypass this policy. Thank you.
Hi, Karen Butler. I wasn't planning on talking, but I can't seem to not. So, sorry. I too was really encouraged when you were asking questions and asking about giving a survey and everything, and I was under the impression that you were just trying to fix the violation of the Brown Act when you rescinded those motions, and I was again excited to think that we were going to have input, and I'm unsure why. I mean, I had a little bit of an idea when you didn't seem to mind that you had to rescind those, and now those are just gone. And so, like the last speaker was saying, I just want to encourage you to go ahead and put those surveys out and let us speak. Like I said at the very, very first board meeting, I think that you will find that there's a lot of people who think a lot of the same way that you do, and we do want to work together, and we don't want this contention that's happening. And yeah, there's maybe a loss of decorum and things like that, but please understand, and we feel very attacked and taken over, and to that, I don't have any idea if you have any association with the text and all the folks that are standing behind me, but of course everyone has a right to be here and say what they want to, and it's public and you're taxpayers and all of that kind of stuff. But if you are one of the people that are being called libtards and bring your flashlights and all that, I don't know how you could expect us not to feel scared and threatened and not heard. So please do not bypass that. Let us help you. We really can choose someone great together. I grew up in this district. I chose to move back here and serve my community. I serve it in many ways, not just as a teacher. And I really feel, I just am begging you to please. Steve was my boss at Grand Oak School. He's amazing. I just don't think it would hurt anything if we could just hold our horses and get through. We already are paying Mr. Harrell, and that, like I said in the last meeting, it is about the money and it is about the kids, and we will not be viable. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if we lose our viability, don't we get taken over by the state anyway? And so everything that you don't like about the laws, I think that'll be out of our hands if we get taken over. So let's just do a little more research and figure this out together. Thank you.
Hi, seen you before. I'm back again to remind you of something. Leanne Westfall. In the Brown Act, Code 54950 says, "This people of this state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies that serve them. The people, in delegating authority, do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and is what not good for them to know. The people insist on remaining informed so they can retain control over the instruments they've created." So when you take a public office, the concept is people elected you and you're supposed to listen to the people. There's a lot of people in this room telling you we just want to do what's right in the policy. And in the policy, we do a good search. We have an interview process. We have people involved in the interview process. You know, I've been in this district for 33 years as a teacher, but I've lived in this community for over 40. I've always been involved in the processes, and I feel like I'm being shortchanged. I accept that you're elected. I was a government teacher. I get how the Constitution works. I've taught it for 30 years. What I don't get is why you have such a need to bypass what is good policy. And if we talk about the person who you're looking to bypass for, I just want to ask you the question that bothers me the most as a teacher. Would you hire me if my credential had been suspended for any reason? That is, the answer is no. There's not a teacher probably working in this district who's ever gone before the commission that's teaching in this district. You just don't do that. So why would you even think to hire someone who's going through that process? You don't believe there's some better people out there? I do. I'm willing to go through the steps it takes. This community deserves better than this. We care. You know, I'm here in a full-on rain suit walking in after I just served dinner to kids from your school district because we were honoring them for their full recognition of awards. Normally, we'd get to have a superintendent hanging out with us and some teachers and stuff, but they didn't feel like they could be there tonight. Now, we made this date a long time ago, but they didn't get a chance to honor their kids tonight. We had to do it in the pouring rain ourselves. So I really hope you'll take a moment to look, man, I don't get why you can't slow down. There's no need for hurry. Steve's competent. Everybody that's in their positions is competent. If you didn't like one person, great, he's gone. Let's do it right now.
I thought Richard Gallardo told us it was a Brown Act thing that we don't have to give our name. That was his first thing that he came up here a couple weeks ago. So, I will give you my name. My name is Michelle Harrington, and I have worked at Shasta Lake School for 20 years. I have been given job opportunities to work at UPrep. I've been given job opportunities to work at Shasta Union High School District. I stayed in Gateway. I stayed in Gateway because I love Gateway's community. I love the kids. I would die to protect every one of my students if there was a threat. But apparently I don't get listened to or respected. Because I come in here and it doesn't matter. You're looking to hire somebody who is a massive red flag. Not even a red flag, a massive one. He's got a reputation. Apparently he can't get another job, we have to give him one. So, my thing is, Jim can retire in June-ish, maybe? Yeah, Steve. Sorry, a long day. Steve still has a contract to finish out. And we're already having to pay Jim for not doing something. Are we going to be paying Steve not to do something on top of paying a new superintendent? We're going to be paying for 3 superintendents? Can this not wait till June when the position opens up? What's the rush? And why do we have to bypass policy that is a working policy? That just makes people not trust you. It makes them think that you're shady. Lindsay, I live in this area and I voted for you because I thought it would be a great thing to have a parent on the board. But apparently I didn't read through the lines that said that you were going to destroy our district for a personal agenda. You said you wanted to have parents have a voice in the community. I read your bio before I voted. And you said you wanted to have leadership that the teachers could trust and the staff can trust. They're telling you tonight they don't trust the person that you are intending on bringing in. I guess that's all I have to say.
Can we tell them to be quiet outside so you can hear what's going on inside?
I don't know. Might get some handsies out there.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Keel. I am an educator. My husband worked at Central Valley High School. I currently serve
students from the Gateway District. I know many of the faces in the crowd. And I just want to speak to intention. And I understand that your intention was to come in and help improve things that you saw as some deficit areas. And I think that the way that it's going about is not helping your cause. I would agree with the transparency. I think the more that you do above board that people can see and have a voice in, the more likely you are to be successful. You probably have some great ideas, but people aren't going to listen if they keep feeling shut out, or if they feel like there are hidden agendas at play and factions that are cheering you on regardless of what the need is of the district. Students have needs, staff have needs, parents have needs, and you have to consider all of those. You have to get a clear view of everything to make wise choices. So I'd like to assume that you do have positive intention. I would also like to hope that you're going to get the educational training that you need for the Brown Act that has been offered repeatedly. So to say, I've never been taught by the board, you are the board. You have opportunities, please take advantage of them so that you can sit up here and make wise choices for your students and for your staff and for your community. Because these students are going to be the people running this country someday. They're going to be up here in these positions, and they need an education, and they need people behind them giving them quality. So there may be policies or curriculum that you don't agree with. Please don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Don't come in and try to make a clean sweep and just get rid of people that you don't like or that you feel like have not served you well. I heard that you have a child that you didn't feel was treated right. I don't know anything about that. But as a parent, I know I would fight for my child. And I applaud you for taking action and political service to your community. Not a lot of people do that. A lot of people talk and backbite, and you're not doing that. You're taking action, but take wise action. If it's not wise, it won't be helpful, and you may not hold a position for as long as you would like to. Work together collaboratively. If you don't collaborate and work as a team, things are not going to go as well as you would hope. You have to work together, you're both things. Please do the good job that people are asking you to do.
How's it going? You ready?
Uh-huh.
Hi, I'm Spencer. I'm at Buckeye. I work with special needs kids. I just wanted to talk a little bit about taxpayer money and in regards to the position of superintendent. As other people have noted, we've already let go one superintendent. If we let go Steve, we'd be paying for him. If we hired somebody, say Brian Cables, we'd now be paying 3 superintendents. Brian Cables has had his various credentials suspended 3 times at least. So Brian Cables, he gets kicked out after a few years, he quits, he gets fired, whatever. Now we're paying 4 superintendents. And I know a lot of people who are in support of Brian Cables claim to be conservative. And I would like to ask anyone who is conservative, what is conservative about spending 4 superintendent budgets on a position that's rotating? That's not conservative. In fact, I would say that's a very liberal position to say we can just throw away taxpayer money. If you are conservative, you would realize that we should let the position play out. Do not waste the taxpayer money that can be spent on something else. It is not conservative to waste money. That is the opposite of conservative. Now, I've also heard some people say that we shouldn't be heckling the board members, that we should treat the board members with respect. With that, I would like to say with all due respect that the board members, much like 99% of the other people in this room, are all grown adults. If somebody doesn't want to do part of their job as a grown adult, they can leave that job. If I didn't want to work with special needs kids any longer, I could leave. I could leave tomorrow. I could put in my resignation. Anyone else could do the same. So, for anyone in here who's concerned that the board is not being treated fairly, I would like to say that these adults, these grown adults elected for this position, not just they filled out an application, they ran for these positions. They literally went to the ballot. If they can't handle being treated like adults at their jobs, then they should seek other jobs. As I suspect many teachers and staff in this school district will do if Brian Cables becomes superintendent. There's many wonderful school districts in this town, and I highly suspect many of them will go there instead. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Don Spurgeon. I live at 4885 Parker Street in Shasta Lake, right next to Shasta Lake School. I have been through all these schools in the district, and I've worked with many of the people in this room, and I have tried to work with you guys. I really do want to work with you to make this a better school district, because I could have moved on and went elsewhere. But you guys, you don't seem to get the point that you need to at least express what your goal is in firing Jim or not putting Steve in for, because he's doing a fine job. Debbie does a good job. You guys don't listen to her. You don't listen to anybody, but you seem to, three of you have an agenda that you're not letting us in on. I don't know if you are going to hire anybody else tonight. If you do, please don't do it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bobby Simpson.
Speaking to the mic, Bobby.
Thank you. My name is Bobby Simpson. I am a parent. I have two boys in the Gateway District. Both of them are special needs, and I recognize some of the teachers here today, and I want to say thank you. All the teachers I've dealt with in this district are amazing. They've transformed our family for the better. I don't want a decision to be made that's going to drive them away. As a parent, I also want a chance to be able to know what kind of person is going to be the superintendent, who's going to have an influence over policy and the education of our kids. I know there's other issues, and I'm not going to go into them. I want to say that there should be focus on education. And I want you to please follow policy and let us and the teachers and the community have a voice in who is going to help run our schools. And I want to see them better. I want to see our kids succeed. Thank you.
Very well. The motion has been made and seconded. So we're going to have discussion.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Board Policy 2120 has been in place for a long time, and it's very carefully crafted so as to make the process fair, and to just say that you want to bypass all those board provisions, as has been stated numerous times, does not lead to confidence in your ability to lead, because you're throwing away the qualities that make sure that our district gets good leadership. And I, as a board member, please don't throw away that responsibility. Take the time to do your due diligence, as I've asked you before, and please move forward, following the board policy, and hire a good superintendent for this district.
I'll follow up on Mr. Lewis. I think to throw out Board Policy 2120 is ludicrous. I think it's there for a reason. I've been involved in superintendent searches before, and it works. Well, most of the time. But I think that's a process that's been there for years. It's been followed when we've looked for superintendents each time. And to throw it out the door because you have something else in mind is stupid.
No more discussion? Very well, we'll move on to the vote. I vote yes.
Vote yes.
I vote yes.
Resign.
No surprise, but I vote no.
Yeah.
I also vote no.
The motion passes, it's 3-2.
Apparently you do not listen to the public.
No. Can we get a copy of the hidden agenda too?
Guys, let's kind of keep the decorum. You know, it's hard to make us work from all levels in the education. I respect our teachers, I respect our staff, I respect our parents. So let's don't sully it by, making comments that are inappropriate. You guys should get plenty of time to address the board tonight. There are obviously more items than just 2120. I'm sorry that it went down that way, but it is a 3-2 vote.
Madam President, the next item on the agenda is which was number 3, originally approval of closed session agenda as presented.
Motion to approve the closed session agenda. Do I hear a second? Lindsay seconds it. Discussion. No discussion? All right. We will vote.
After the approval.
Okay. I approve the agenda, so I vote yes, approve it.
No.
No.
Okay, the motion to approve has been made and seconded and passed 3-2.
Can I ask a point of order?
No.
Can't they, I thought the president could not make a motion, you had to wait for other people to make the motion.
Correct.
Just checking with my FFA people in here, parliamentary procedure. Yes.
There's parliamentary procedure here, and yeah, President can't make a motion.
President cannot make a motion.
I can state that several weeks ago, Mr. Henson and myself spoke with legal counsel when we still had legal counsel to consult with, and they did verify that a president can make a motion.
Thank you.
That was what our legal counsel at the time did assure us, so Mrs. Clifford's in the right.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda, it was number 4, public comment. It's the next item up, and it is for public comment on closed session agenda items only.
Okay, anybody want to speak?
Hello, I'm a Gateway teacher. I grew up in this community. Many of the speakers at the past few meetings, and I can also say this one, have limited perspectives of a very complicated issue. There's no doubt that many of the speakers in the past few meetings have made assumptions about people that are not true. I hate speaking and I'm very nervous to be up here. Gateway is my home. I feel really strongly about getting up here and speaking. I wish I could give some wonderful unifying speech like Martin Luther King Jr. or Lincoln, because I love everybody in this room. I am friends with Lindsay and many of these teachers in this room on both sides. First, I think that the teachers here are great. I feel very protective of my fellow colleagues and the staff. I don't know what the press has against us, but we always get in the news for negative reasons. How about you guys report on the good things we do? It's not a true picture of who we are. I've had the privilege of working with the most passionate, loving, and self-driven people here at Gateway. And as for our board, this board is not a bunch of outsiders who came in a hostile takeover. I hope we established that the last meeting when Eli was able to speak at the end, The Haynes have had a child go all the way through this district already. They volunteer, coach, and are very involved with many things in this community. They ran because they love Gateway, not because they want to blow it up. Not for personal vendettas. And when people get up and talk openly about lawsuits and other legal matters, they need to remember that a child is involved. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. But it's not okay, and it's possibly illegal. Because they voted to get our opinion at the last meeting. They voted for that. They wanted that. It was a unanimous board decision. Let's keep that in mind. They want to know what you want. Let me get to my point. That proves that. I'll keep going. Many of you know that I know the Caples family very well. I helped in Brian's campaign. It's nothing like he's nothing like the press has made him out to be. He's a kind man who loves education. His wife is also a teacher. They've passed down their love for education to their children, who now are pursuing their own teaching credentials. He believes in supporting teachers to do their jobs. He campaigned on that. It's not fair what his family is going through. His name is being dragged through the mud, and people who don't even know him are out to ruin his career because they read a one-sided article about him. Brian has been very honest and upfront about that he was against masking children. When the state tied money to masking children, Brian refused to sign for the funds. Many people applauded him for that. Brian is not to blame for the division being caused. Finally, it's your responsibility, board, to hire a superintendent. It's one of, and I look forward to continuing to teach here under your new leadership, whatever you choose. But I do urge you to involve all people in making this decision. Thank you.
My name is Jenny O'Connell, and the group that I'm with did not read the media. We read his dismissal papers from the last district. He squandered $60,000 from that district. Can we afford that? How do I put this? When we were kids, how many of you fell for sea monkeys? Sea monkeys, you know, with like the crowns and the tridents and the little communities and how they're all awesome. And what did you get? You got brine shrimp. You got brine shrimp, and they did nothing. You just wasted money on nothing. And that's what we're about to do. Brian Caples is a brine shrimp. Lots of promises, lots of fancy things coming, but he's nothing. He's just going to squander your money, just like he did at the last school district. That's why they got rid of him. $60,000 squandered on him.
Okay, Kobe. Scott. Thank you. Okay, Kobe. Scott Valley. Palermo. Burnt Ranch. Don't make it number 4. Don't hire your friends. If the person you have in mind is that good, then they can compete with all others and let the top winner win for superintendent. If you're afraid to let the candidates compete, you ought to tell us why. You ought to tell us why. You've been asked by the public not to rush. You've got time. You've got capable people in place. Some people might have made their minds up and made pre-arrangements already. I think that's not a good idea. I think that you ought to deliberate in public and have your candidate compete against the best that you can attract. Ms. Clifford, I hope that you agree with that your candidate can compete and win against the best that Gateway can attract and the best that Gateway deserves.
Hi there. Several people have alluded to the fact that you're all elected officials, and that's absolutely true. That's not up for debate. You're here because people wanted you to be here. And I just wanted to point out, as other people have tonight, that as an elected official, your duty is to the community. It's to be the voice of the people, not for making hasty and private decisions while disregarding opposition from the public. As a reminder, you're here to represent us, not yourselves or your personal opinions. You are a public servant. The public tonight has told you that they don't want Brian Caples. I graduated, I went through the Gateway District from kindergarten all the way through high school. My children are now in the same district. All of my family is in this district from kindergarten all the way through high school currently. My father went to Central Valley High School. Throughout more than 4 decades of family, we're in the 3rd generation of being in this district now. There's never been issues like this. There's never once been issues like this. Things are in shambles. You have the power to change that tonight because the shambles were put in place by your decisions. You have people telling you what they want and what they don't. Your duty is to the public. Remember what they've told you tonight.
Hi, my name is Michelle Davis, and I'm a teacher at Gateway Unified. I'm also the president of the Gateway Teachers Association. I'm here to request that Mrs. Clifford and Mrs. Haynes recuse themselves from any votes pertaining to Brian Caples for superintendent of the Gateway Unified School District due to conflict of interest. I'm requesting this based on the Political Reform Act of 1974, Section 81,000, that deals with conflicts of interest. Sections 87,100 states that no public official at any level of state or local government shall participate in or in any way attempt to use her official position to influence a governmental decision in which she knows or has reason to know she has financial interest. The financial interest I am speaking of is a donation that Mrs. Clifford and Mrs. Haynes made to Mr. Cable's campaign for the Shasta County Superintendent of Schools. Mrs. Clifford made a $100 donation to the campaign on April 24th, 2022, and Mrs. Haynes made a $300 donation to the campaign on March 18th, 2022. This qualifies as a conflict of interest because you have invested interest in his success. And if he is hired as the new superintendent of Gateway Unified School District, a position I question whether or not he is qualified for. The two of you and Mr. Haynes, who all campaigned for Mr. Caples and are taking a part in hiring your friend to a position that you control. This raises the question of whether your actions, judgment, or decision-making is unbiased. Your willingness to rush through the process of appointing a superintendent and ignore the established 12-step process, or at this point, delete the 12-step process, outlined in the Gateway USD Board policy, further proves that you are pushing your own interests above the community. Again, I request that the board reconsider their agenda, and again, Mr. and Mrs. Clifford, Mrs. Clifford and Mrs. Haynes recuse themselves from any vote involving the party they have personal interest and financial ties to. Additionally, I would like to ask all staff, community members, and parents who are opposed to the appointment of Brian Caples as superintendent of Gateway Unified School District and who are in favor of a fair and transparent process to stand up and let them know that you're against what they're doing. Thank you.
Leanne Westfall. Once again, we must reconsider what you're doing. You just got shown. People here are trying to work with you. You said you wanted us to do a survey. I was all up for waiting for that survey to show up. so I could write down things that I think a superintendent needs to be. You're now gonna go into closed session, you're pretty much just said you're gonna do what you're gonna do. I just wanna know what it is that he has that you think is gonna be good for us as a district. Because that is the thing we're missing. We can't understand, I agree with the last person, you really should recuse yourself because you gave to his campaign, which means you have a connection with him that we have never seen in this district before with our superintendents. We've never seen this kind of thing. And it's scary to many of us who realize that there's an agenda that doesn't include us, and yet you ran, and everyone I talked to, and I read some of your campaign material, it was all about the kids and all about the education system. But I've never seen that as part of any vote you're making. And I know you have personal friends, they're like taking this all real personal. You gotta get over that, people. If you choose to be in the public eye, you choose to be in the public eye. And yeah, there's a lot of people mad at you. A lot of people don't like you right now. But guess what? At the same time, they have compassion that you're trying to do your job. They just don't understand what job you're doing. You keep violating the Brown Act. I know this group has this kind of mindset, like we just keep doing it, eventually it'll work. But there's some people that did that and it didn't work for them. You can't change the law from where you're at. You change it by voting. Okay, you can't change everything where you're at, and that's what you're doing. You're taking away policy that was been a lot of time looking at that policy. I just can't imagine any major business just picks somebody. They don't. No one does hiring like that. So why do you think the three of you, who I don't even really feel understand parts of the law, can just throw away what the rest of us do when we apply for a job? I mean, teachers I know out here they're living in fear of what you guys might do next. And that means you guys are setting yourself up for lots of lawsuits for workplace harassment, toxic workplace. You're just setting it up for tons of lawsuits if you go ahead and not pay attention to what the people are saying. People are speaking to you. Can you hear us?
Me again. Believe it or not, on my way over here, my aunt from Tucson, she saw the article about Peoples losing his credentials on her Google feed. And she told me, she knew I was coming here, and she said, "You go, girl, you stand up for what you believe in." And that's the same thing we tell our students. And I told her my goal tonight was to keep my mouth shut. It hasn't worked. But that's what makes me a good teacher too, is because I stand up and I communicate with my students. I respect my students and they give me the respect back. And that's what we're asking you guys to do. Respect us so that we can respect you. That last vote you took, you lost a lot of respect because almost everybody who got up here and spoke about the fact that they wanted you to go through with the policy that is documented board policy that has worked in the past. I want to talk about, somebody brought up, I think it was Katie, which Katie, we all love you, you're a teacher at our school, at our district, about the fact about mask mandates and vaccinations and stuff. Can we just put that in the past? That's over. We're not wearing masks in school anymore. We're not making people get vaccinated. But for some reason, it's still there. Do you realize that the staff at Gateway for 2 years showed up every day? My husband is a teacher in another district. They worked 2 days a week. They saw students for 2 days, they took a day off, they saw the other half of their students for 2 days. We were here 5 days a week with the same students every day because we wanted the best for our students. And we still managed to have learning loss. And we got, from what I understand, we got some COVID funds, which maybe had some strings attached, but we are doing things with those funds. We have after-school tutoring for the first time in 20 years that I have been there. We are offering after-school tutoring for those kids that need it, that have learning loss. We are buying educational things that they need. We are getting extra help. We have extra help in the classroom because that's what we're doing with those COVID funds. And that is not a bad thing. That is what's best for the students. And do not make our students political pawns. Do what's best for them. I'm sorry if there's strings attached, but who is it hurting if you don't take that money? You're hurting the kids that are benefiting from what we can do with that money. Okay, I'm gonna tell my aunt that I failed tonight, but thank you for listening to me.
I'll talk again too. My name is Spencer. Once again, I work at Buckeye with special needs kids. I would like to just say that now that we have gotten rid of all the requirements and all of the standards for a superintendent, that I feel that I myself am more qualified for the position of superintendent than Brian Caples. And unlike Brian Caples, I have never been fired. I have never been fired 3 times. Unlike Brian Caples, if you Google my name, there is no record of harassment of any sort against me or my character. So what I would like to say is, if your intent is to hire Brian Caples, I would say everyone in here, even the small baby, is more qualified than Brian Caples. Because that baby has not been fired from 3 jobs. Would you hire someone who's been fired from 3 jobs to bag your groceries? I wouldn't hire someone who's been fired from 3 jobs to bag my groceries. I don't care how good of a person he is. I don't care if he donates to the church. I don't care if he helps the Haven Humane. If you've been fired, suspended from 3 jobs, you are not qualified to work in a school. I am more qualified than Brian Caples. These people are more qualified than Brian Caples. So, I would also just like to say that I think it's really absurd that this is even a discussion at all. We have somebody who's here until the end of the school year. And I would also like to say that March of 2020 was 3 years ago in 2 months, and that people who are still worked up about things from 3 years ago need to grow up and get over it. Get over it. It was 3 years ago. It's done. I see 2 masks in this room. So those people in the audience that are boo-hoo, we had to wear masks 3 years ago. Grow up.
Make sure you guys can hear me. My name is Jacob Skortis. I was a Central Valley graduate in 2016. I've been sitting back there. I've been sitting back these last 3 meetings, and I don't know, just sitting back there, and it just hit me a little hard tonight, seeing a lot of the teachers that I grew up with come up and say what they felt and what they believed in. I can see my teacher, Miss Mulrennan. She was my English teacher freshman year. Miss Van Dyke, pretty sure was 7th grade.
Hey, Jake, I hate to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
you really should just address the board. I appreciate.
No problem. Yeah, I will. So, from what I'm saying is, you have these people come up here explaining how they feel and what they want changed. And I was there at the cafeteria when you guys were wanting to do that survey, and I was like, okay, that's going to be something new. I mean, I hear bad things about you guys, and I don't believe people are bad. I usually give everybody a chance. And that was me giving you guys a chance. You guys came up to me and Anna Lewis, and you guys wanted to talk more, and I appreciated that. But I'm not seeing change from you guys at all. And it upsets me, and I know it upsets a lot of the teachers and parents here. So I hope that you guys do the change and respect everybody that's here that stood behind me and spoke their mind. So I ask you politely, please, to take in consideration the people you work for, your community members, because we care. Thank you.
My name is Dolores Lucero. I'm just been listening to everybody here, and it's so sad. And first thing I'd like to say, you who actually made a comment to the person who came up here to speak, is he has a right, if he wants to turn around and explain a little bit to the audience here. It's called freedom of speech and freedom of, he has a right to turn no matter which way, our constitutional right. So don't interrupt when they're speaking. First, I'd like to say, when people get fired or they lose their job anywhere in our country, no matter what situation it is, they have the right for second chance in life. So for people to come up here and badmouth Mr. Cables and to act like they're better than Mr. Cables and to really put him down, like they don't even know what this whole situation, whatever happened in, whatever happened to him in other schools or whatever, nobody knows everything. But yet they're willing to just say whatever they feel like because they already don't like the change. These 3 board members are, they're here to make a change, and things have to get worse before they get better. People don't like things to change. People don't like change. And I understand that. You're worried. But you don't have nothing to worry about because you've got people who were elected by the people. So therefore, not only your opinion matters, but over 2,000 people who voted for these people. And you talk about the kids in the ponds, don't use the kids as pawns. But yet, we got people who's passing out flyers, and which is Mrs. Kate Colby, and she's the one who actually has been promoting vaccines, and this affects all the kids in the schools. What do you think? That you talk about kids, but look at the big picture. There's other people who are actually promoting vaccines to your own children. Okay, so I mean, you guys are just you're not looking at everything. You're saying one thing, but yet you're contradicting everything else what you're saying. And so I think that in the conflict of interest, you got to read the conflict of interest because I know the conflict of interest very well. That is, I like the conflict of interest because it does bring people down. But what you're talking about, that only $100 or $50 is not a conflict of interest. The conflict of interest means that you're going to be gaining money constantly and all that. You got to really look at the law because that comes from the Attorney General. That's a 1090 conflict of interest. So I just find it very disturbing. So I just hope you guys do what you have to do, and good luck on that. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak? Please come up.
Mr. Henson, I think you and people that come here they come here to address the board, not to politicize, not to talk to the community. And I think we need a little bit of clarity on that after the last speaker.
Mr. Lewis, in response to that, Mr. Henson is allowing me to. Public comment at a public meeting such as this is for the public to have an opportunity to address the board members in an open forum. They have 3 minutes to do so uninterrupted and respected for who they are and what they're having to say. So the comments really ideally should go to the board directly. And it is usually for an agenda item, like which is happening right now. They're speaking to what they want to have you discern from their thoughts and their opinions and their concerns that they want you to hear and address at the time. So the comments of public comment should be to the board. Is that it?
Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Jill Marshall. I am a parent of a student at Shasta Lake School.
She has not had a normal education because of the pandemic, but I want to applaud Gateway Unified and Shasta Lake School for their way that they handled it. They made all of the concessions and reached out to parents and made sure that she had a seamless education. Coming back in this year, I thought it was going to be great. We got, full steam ahead. She's in all of the special after-school things so she can get caught back up. Now we have teachers and administrators and schools that are feeling not heard. And we have parents, myself, feeling not heard. If we're appointing somebody that has been suspended on record and there is, the CTC has the suspensions for the things that he has done, we're going to hire somebody who has that record. It just is a slap in the face. It is not inclusive. It doesn't give our voices any matter. And I wouldn't stand for it if my student was suspended. She would be taken out of the things that she would want to get invited to or have time to do. She would not be elected to anything at that point. She would have to follow through and feel the suspension. As adults, we have to model that for our kids. And if I were in a position, I have ethics codes for my job. If I violated those code of ethics, I would have my license suspended. I would not be up for rehire for any agency, for any public, anything. I just really want to caution you against hiring somebody that is not speaking for my administration at my school or my students, and that does not have the parents' hearts. I just caution that.
Thank you.
My name is Catherine Lauer. I am a teacher at Central Valley High School. I have a question for the board, mainly the three members. Does the group Reading Patriots speak for you? Are you guys a part of that group? Because if they speak for you guys, maybe you should listen to what they've said.
We're not answering a question like that.
I understand. Yeah, I probably wouldn't either. But you guys are wondering what we're so worried about with bringing in a new superintendent, and I think we're worried because in a post that they made, I need many citizens as possible to show up early to fill up the boardroom before the libtards do and support the new board members. That room holds about 50 people. So they're blocking our freedom of speech, right? They're trying to fill up the seats so the people who actually live here and work here as our homes, we can't come in, okay? So that's a problem. Then, let's see. Most of you will be there to observe and report. However, there will be a small number of us ready and willing to go to hands with disruptors if needed. So let me get this straight. Along with my mastery of physics, chemistry, robotics, and engineering, and creating a new CTE pathway at Gateway, I gotta do Taekwondo. I gotta go learn karate so I can protect myself in the parking lot from Reading Patriots, people who are trying to overrun our board meetings. I don't know, it's just very confusing. There's a very clear divide in the room. There's a lot of tension with the Reading Patriots on one side and the teachers on the other. I don't know what you guys are gonna do to make us feel safe and appreciated. Again, we've worked really, really hard to combat this loss of learning. Everyone is mad of COVID. We're mad as hell about COVID too. But guess what? We're in the classrooms every day trying to close that gap in learning, working our butts off. And what you guys are doing right now is you're tearing us apart. We have teachers who are super stressed out now, thinking that they're gonna get followed by these wackos, right? We can't even do our jobs because we have Reading Patriot sites there's affiliations with you guys that are threatening us. So it's just, what are you guys gonna do about that? How are we gonna feel safe and protected in our own community where we've been working our butts off for you and our students? Maybe you could answer that, I don't know. Do I need extra protection? Need to add anything else to my list of accolades? I don't know, just maybe you guys could help us feel a little bit more protected in the place that we call home. Just wondering.
I already spoke. So everyone keeps bringing up to forgive your past comments about what you've made about public schools, Mrs. Clifford. Yet another half of the room doesn't want to forget the past. So they want us to forget the past when it comes to you, but not when it comes to COVID and these mask mandates. We're all willing to move on. COVID affected all of us. I lost my senior year of college. I was restricted on a ship. I was not allowed off of my ship for over 2 months and longer because of COVID. We're willing to move past that. I think everybody is willing to move past that. Gateway struggled and persevered through COVID. 5 days a week in the classroom, congratulations. And we're willing to move on from your past comments about public schools and how you feel about them. Yet you want to hire somebody? We have a saying at my work, and it's a little bit of a colloquialism. If it happens once, it's a fluke. If it happens twice, it's a coincidence. If it happens 3 times, it's a habit. Don't let Gateway become the 4th.
I'll make this quick. I'm Don Blocker, educator. I already talked to you a little bit. There seems to be a divide that has been going on for several years between data and opinion. And I'm certainly not going to speak to that because there's no point. But what I can say is that if you are willing to take a little bit of time and do some due diligence, anyone can go to the CTC site and look at teachers' credentials. You can look at any suspensions that those teachers had, and you can see any kind of problems. Once again, if I've never had a suspension on my credential, and I'm hoping not to. I won't because I do my job and I care about my job and I follow procedures and I follow protocol and I do the things that are right for my students. I do that 100%. I've done that my entire career, and I became a teacher working full-time as a single parent and going to school full-time. So I wasn't some, the word libtard. Someone didn't just send me off to college and say, have a good time, kid. I worked really hard for this. When you go to the CTC site, and you search Mr. Cables, he has multiple suspensions. He has one right now. That's not me talking bad about this man. I don't know this man. But I know that I wouldn't hire a doctor if his medical license had ever been suspended. He would not cut into my toe, much less my appendix. I wouldn't hire a doctor that had been fired from 3 hospitals because I would have concern. And I think that the education of our students is every bit as valuable as a medical condition. These kids have one shot at 5th grade. They have one shot at 6th grade. They have one shot at 7th grade. If we aren't giving them the best that they can get for those years, they lose. We're now working on making up those years. Nothing we did. We didn't do the mask mandates. That came from the government. I spent every day in a classroom wearing a mask for 2 years because my daughter has leukemia. It wasn't my favorite thing to do. Heck no, it wasn't my favorite. I did it because I had to take care of her. Once again, if you're really thinking that someone is a good candidate, then let them go through the process. Let them prove themselves. Go through their credentials. Go through their past work history. Who in the world would to me, it's almost ludicrous that I would even have to say this. There's no teacher in our district that someone would say, wow, that's a great teacher. Those 6 or 7 suspensions were a fluke. And those 3 firings, fluke. Just a fluke. Someone was picking on them. If you don't believe me, go to the site. Take a look. The suspensions are there. Thank you.
I'm Michelle Keel. I spoke earlier. I just want to say that you've heard a lot of things tonight. I mean, so many people have spoken. And to me, the most telling thing, because I'm a very visual learner, is when the person asked everyone in here who is really concerned about what's going on and not agreeing with how this process is playing out, to stand up. I didn't know. I mean, I knew that there were divisions, but that was like 95% of this room. And to watch the utter disregard for the majority of the people here asking you to do something, and knowing that it really seems like it doesn't matter what's on the agenda. The votes are already decided, the decisions are made. There is another agenda that we don't have access to, and that's really unfortunate because it doesn't breed trust, it doesn't breed respect, it doesn't make people feel confident in the job that you've been elected to do. Please do the job that you're elected to do, that specific job. That's what everyone in here wants you to do.
Hi, my name is Bobby, and when I was younger, I was anxious to learn to drive. But I didn't just get in the car one day and said I was going to drive. There's a procedure. I had training. I had to apply, and I had to pay money, and I had to get a license so that I could drive. There's a procedure in place. Please follow procedure.
Members of the board, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I was not going to address the board tonight, but after hearing what I've been hearing, I think I might have something to add that might be beneficial. A little history: I was one of the folks involved in the unification of this district, and part of the reason it is called a unified district. In the 1970s, I worked in the county council's office as a deputy. My job was to advise the then 30-some school districts in Shasta County on what the law was. Much of my job dealt with the Brown Act and supposed violations and actual violations. I must say, I have never seen a situation like this where the Brown Act has been so seriously violated. In my experience with those districts, the successful districts are the ones that work with the certificated and classified staff and with the community to hear what they had to say. 2120 is there as a safeguard to ensure that you hire competent, reasonable people. You have now blown that away. You have an opportunity still yet to search for a competent, decent man or woman. And I don't know anything about the person that's been spoken about here. But I would encourage you and implore you to listen to these good people. They're here because they care about this district, and primarily because they care about the children. Do not make the mistake of going down the railroad that you're going down. Do your job and do it right.
This is my first time speaking. I realized everybody was getting the second bite at the pie. My name is Richard Gallardo. The post on Reading Patriots, it wasn't Reading Patriots that made that post. It was me. My response to hands-on is because at the December meeting here, there were two very, very confrontational liberals who came within arm's reach of a couple of my friends and verbally accosted them and said, "What are you doing here? You don't belong here." So we are responding in preparation. All right, thank you. So we are responding in preparation of the aggression that we received in December. So pay attention. Funny how nobody has been criticizing the Brown Act until this new board sat. Funny how that happens. I've been detailing Brown Act violations at many different Brown Act covered meetings, city, local, county, for a couple of years now. Funny how now all of a sudden the Brown Act matters. Funny how that works, isn't it, folks?
You're addressing the board.
Okay, it's my turn to speak. The CTC, the Credentialing Commission, 30-day suspension for Mr. Caples. That's a slap on the wrist. Means nothing. It's a political ploy. 2011, the CTC revokes a teacher's credential for making nitroglycerin. Good for them. They should have done that. 2016, another teacher convicted of inciting a riot. No adverse action taken by the CTC. 2022, another teacher lewd texts with a child, arrested. No adverse action from the CTC. 2022, Sacramento. 61-year-old Olga Oliveras, teacher, kidnapped a student, held them against their will for 2 years. Guess what? No adverse action from the CTC. They are so across the board inconsistent with any action or no action that they take against teachers for some very egregious matters. So they've lost their credibility. It's gone. And just so you know, local news cafe got it wrong again. They quoted another female local patriot for the post that belongs to me.
Maybe you should have put your name on it.
I just want to point out for Mr. Gallardo that I've seen these people speak, and I understand why you're so afraid.
Snowflake.
I mean,
Address the board, please. Address the board.
I mean, I don't know how many people have come up here and attributed great motives to you, even though everything that you've done indicates that you made up your mind. And the only time I saw nodding heads among the three of you was when people were talking about wokeness. So I think probably in some sense that you do want to do what you think is right, but what you think is right has nothing to do with what these people think is right. Their focus is totally on the children and the students. That's who they deal with every day. They know those kids. Their heart goes out to those kids. I don't know where you came from, what group you came from, what ideology you come from, but clearly it has more to do with changing things in a way that has little to do with education for kids. And in terms of education, I was on a school board, this school board, for 4 years. One of the things that I learned, and I saw it firsthand, the most important determinant of what kind of school you have and the quality of the school that you have is the principal of the school. That's the single most important determinant. That's where attitudes are generated. That's where effort and fervor and unity comes from among the staff. And you're going to hire a superintendent, evidently. You've already gift wrapped it. I doubt that those two had anything to do with it, had anything to say about it, or even knew about it. It's all bit done, I think. And you're going to do that. And now these people are telling you, don't do that to us. Don't upset this. This is working well. I don't think you're going to listen. But I applaud this audience. They say heckle, this mild heckling in such an emotional issue that means so much to these teachers and parents, I think is admirable. I don't think it should have happened. I don't think there should have been heckling, but it's very, very mild. And Mr. Gallardo, fearing for evidently his safety, and he has to have people that are willing to go to the mat. I don't see that here. Anyway.
Hello, I'm Lynn Fredrickson. I am a school counselor, Mountain Lakes High School in the Gateway Unified School District. I've been in education 35 years, 27 in the Gateway Unified School District. And listening to everything that's going on, you know, it does sadden me that we're not coming to some kind of a compromise. My thought is, and simply, I don't know the gentleman, Brian Caples, but I know that his credentials are suspended until February 15th. Oh, 13th. So maybe wait until that point in time to go through hiring a superintendent. Just wait it out, possibly consider bringing back in what you voted out for the policy of how to hire a superintendent and what to look for, and get people to apply for that job. Really look for quality people. And he may be a quality person, I don't know, but go through the interview process. I think that's what everyone's looking forward to. So, thank you, that's it.
Good evening, board. I know you're going to be going to closed session. I don't know how long that might be, and I just wanted to respond to absolutely give thought to everybody that showed up today, whether they were coaxed to be here or just thought they'd be here to try to overrun it or whatever. But I'm hearing very legitimate comments, despite what the last person said here or two, that it's just mild heckling. I'm an MFT, and I've worked at one safe place with domestic violence. You don't really get to say it was just mild slapping around my spouse, or I didn't leave a mark, or I don't think it hurt. You don't get to do that kind of description and downplay. When I was here the night Superintendent Jim Harrell was dismissed, done, this was one of the rudest, disrespectful, amazingly pathetic meetings I've ever attended. I did not make the last one. I can't make every board of supervisor meeting for another year, or other school district meetings. I work. I'm grateful you have a nighttime meeting, but again, as you go in to talk about a closed session, I would just like to remind people, when people are new and they don't have sufficient training, education, coaching, or welcoming, it leaves a mark because you don't feel welcome, you don't feel gratitude for running for office. Well, I'm facing this way. Students over there, down there, okay, won't be facing this way. So, you actually don't get to control their facial movements. That's a little bit controlling if I talk this way or that way. So, to my point is about the first meeting I was here, when it was here, I was stunned at the behavior, and I'm scared if some of you are actually in the classrooms and you're openly talking like this and heckling and being rude and spiteful. I'm shocked. And I think we almost need cameras in the rooms, and that's why the students have them. So as I go take my seat, I would like to have an example of what I would do if you were a new person in my school district, or anybody, even if I didn't vote for you, I would welcome you. I would give you some encouragement. So as I leave, I'm going to give you a little tiny flower. Oh, out of respect, that's what you do to new people. You don't eat up word salad. Word salad. So I'm sorry you've been through abusive couple meetings. That's not right. The new people that I'm aware of.
Oh, not Bobby.
Order, please. Order.
Yes, if I could, Madam President, trustees, I would be, Madam President and trustees, I would be remiss if I didn't once again advise you in what I consider is the best interest, that you please postpone your decisions until we can have secure legal counsel that understands school law, that can advise. I think that would be what is best for your own protection and any personal liabilities, any liabilities towards this district. I am not saying this simply to stall anything. I am saying this because, believe it or not, I care for everybody in this district, including those that were elected recently. Please let us secure legal counsel that understands school law, and they can inform you. I'm not asking you not to vote for something. I'm asking you to postpone your vote until we have legal counsel once again that can help you on this. Thank you.
Now making my way from the back when Mr. Henson began.
Please speak.
Hi, how you doing? Jesse Lane. Hey, I've been coming to these for many years. When my kids were growing up and they were in Gateway, I came to these. Now my stepkids come here to Gateway Unified School District. I grew up in Gateway School District, and to be honest, I'm ashamed with the lack of class some of you guys are having. The way you're acting and heckling, it's ridiculous. If you did that, and that's what you're teaching my children, I'm actually ashamed. I'm the big bad militia guy here, and yet I'm not heckling and yelling when I hear things that essentially go against my beliefs. But guess what? The best thing about freedom is you get the right not to believe what I believe, and I have the right to not believe what you believe. So the heckling thing, let's just have a little more class. As for our board, the new members, you guys were elected by us. Thank you guys for stepping up. I wouldn't want to be here doing any of this. Seeing what you guys are doing, hats off to all of you guys. It's a lot to deal with. I'm standing back there and wondering when it's gonna get done so I can go home and finally have dinner. So for you guys, all of you guys, hats off to all of you. As for this issue with the superintendent, being a parent of Gateway School District, I do think we need to make the best decision for the children. I think that we do need to look at all of our options, and that we do need to go through a process of picking the right candidate. Whether it's X, Y, or Z, I think we do need to look at all their credentials, and we need to have a hiring panel. However you guys do it, I don't know your process, so I'll be in some local blog tomorrow, so I don't know the process of what it is. But all I say is, when I hire on for my company, I have a panel with 3 people, and we go through, we ask the same questions to each candidate. Each candidate's rated from 1 to 5. At the end, we total up what each one of us has. Whoever has the closest to those 50 points, that's who I hire. So I keep hearing left, right, conservative, liberal, whatever else. I hear something about Reading Patriots Group. Believe me, I have about 25 different militias that come to my house every month, and I've never heard of a Reading Patriots Group. So if you guys are here, I'd like to meet you, have you guys come out to one of our get-togethers. But
Cool.
it's, in all honesty, I do want the best for the children of Gateway. And I think the children of Gateway deserve the best that we can find.
The motion to approve has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Any other board members?
I've lost track which motion and second have we.
Okay, I believe we, approval of closed session as presented. I made the motion, then we had everybody speak. The motion was seconded, and then we opened it to public comment.
Yeah, we opened to public comment right now. I don't believe there's any motion on the floor, and now it's just a recess to closed session.
No, there's a motion to approve the closed session.
You're right. Turn to Debbie. Was that already approved?
Yes, you made the motion, Cheryl. Lindsay seconded, and then it was a 3-2 vote.
Okay, so now we're going to go into closed session. So we
And this would be item 7, recess to closed session, and we'll call the time 8:12 p.m. I'm looking on my clock, we're trusting,
Recessing to.
We'll be going to the superintendent's office.
Wow. Are you going to be able to send that to me?
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah? Oh, yeah, we might not. That's hilarious.
You're all good, no worries. I'm not filming right now. Thank you, Join public service, they said. All these segments. 1, 2, 3.
I've got water here.
That's a good sign. Good.
Yeah, you do. You're fine. I'm tired.
Oh, you are.
There's been a medical emergency and Lizzie Haynes had to go and we're waiting for Eli to come back to the board. So when he's back, we'll reconvene.
Oh, no. Does that mean I should go to the hospital? Uh-huh. Oh, that could be good. Oh, boy.
No, not her. Yes. You're good. I gotta conserve the battery. Hopefully something because I got the live shot. So I gotta move back to back outside.
There he is. Good.
Reconvene. Call to order. 10:41. Time.
Oh, sorry about that. All right, roll call. Clifford's here. Eli, are you here?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
I'm here still.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mrs. Haynes had a medical emergency with her little girl, and it's probably been in process for a little bit, so she stayed as long as she dared, but she had to go. So we have a quorum anyway, so we'll move on without her. Okay, let's have a flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcement of any reportable actions taken in closed session with respect to every item of business discussed in closed session pursuant to Education Code Section 48900, student discipline. No action was taken on that. Public employment of appointment for superintendent pursuant to Government Code 54957E1, no reportable action. So we'll move to public comment for items not listed on the agenda.
Looks like I lost a sick card.
Hi, my name is Sherry Lewis. I'm a retired teacher from Gateway, where I taught for over 30 years. I'd like to give you a little history. I meant to say this back on December 20th, but I was ill and not able to attend, so I would like to give you a little history right now. About 70 years ago, a little boy walked across Shasta Dam Boulevard and up the hill to start school at Project City, now named Grand Oaks. He moved on to CVI and then Central Valley High School, where he was a 3-sport athlete and an honor grad. After Central Valley, he attended Shasta College and then Chico State. He came back to the area and started a construction business with his brother-in-law. Together they volunteered to build the concrete stairs leading up to the tennis courts and the foundation for the Max Corbell snack bar at the edge of the track at the high school. At Grand Oaks, they also built the outside amphitheater. He was a Shasta Dam Little League coach, and for 30 years he opened the local gym for community basketball. In the early 90s, wanting more localized control over the high school, he helped to spearhead the unification project, which led Central Valley High School and the local elementary schools to becoming the Gateway Unified School District. It was his eldest daughter that named the district, a name she thought was appropriate since unification was the gateway teachers needed for better articulation between grade levels to enhance student learning. He raised 4 children in the district, all multi-sport athletes that graduated Central Valley at the top of their class. In later years, he attended Simpson College, where he received his teaching credential. He taught first at Mountain Lakes, where he had an uncanny ability to help students turn their lives around. He moved to Buckeye Middle School, where he taught at-risk students and coached basketball, baseball, and track. He finished his teaching career at Grand Oaks, the very school where he started his education 60 years prior. In retirement, not wanting to give up on education, he ran for the school board, where he was elected from Area 1, where he has faithfully represented for over 10 years now. For the last several years, he served as your school board president, navigating through the tumultuous pandemic with federal requirements, state mandates, and constantly changing public health guidelines and recommendations. He did this with the health and welfare of the students and staff first and foremost in his mind, all the while keeping the district financially solvent. His dedication to this district and community is historically unwavering. That is the man you voted out of office of president. He had no sooner sworn you in with your oath of office that you used your newfound majority to elect yourselves to all board leadership positions, removing him as president and Mr. Wallace, his colleague, as from vice president. Your bumbling incompetence, your multiple Brown Act violations, and chaotic decision-making has been on full display ever since. Thank you.
I'm going to try to be really brief. I am actually here on behalf of a meeting I attended at SCOE regarding a separate issue. It's County Office Regulation 5145.3. I just wanted to make your board aware of this and some provisions in there. I would recommend for yourselves, maybe even make your parents go out and read this, review it, because I think it needs some modifications, and I think each district in our county should stand up for our parental rights. There are some things in here that are a little scary, and as an educator and a parent, it's just something I think you should be aware of. So I brought copies for all of you.
Thank you.
Is that it? Anyone else want to speak?
Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay, items of interest, communications. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Hi, my name is Anna. I work here at the district office. I'm going to read a letter from my son. Good evening. My name is Lauren Murch. I attended school at Gateway Unified School beginning 2002. I was Central Valley High School valedictorian for 2009. I worked for the district's after-school program for 2 years following my graduation, and I still have many former colleagues and friends working for the district. I left to attend UC Berkeley, where I double majored in philosophy and anthropology. Before completing a graduate degree in archaeology from the University of Cambridge, I am now employed as an archaeologist, working primarily to ensure compliance with the federal and state cultural resources and environmental regulations. I state my credentials because I want to make it clear to the board that I am successful because of the education I received here from caring, intelligent, and talented teachers. Several teachers, one of whom is likely in this room, reignited my curiosity and passion for knowledge. This curiosity and drive carried me from Berkeley and Cambridge, and is the reason I still read every day and try to learn everything I can. Gateway made that possible. Furthermore, in my 2 years working for the district, I have seen the impact that good teachers have on population that is severely economically and socially disadvantaged. Though I was lucky enough to have supportive parents during my school years, and many of my friends and many of the children I worked with did not. Nevertheless, I watched many of these same kids go to college, start families, improve their lives because kind teachers, especially those here tonight, realize their potential. I felt cared for as a student and an employee. I can attest to the care that many teachers and district employees invest in their work. These teachers and employees have put in the time to become educated, credentialed, and continue to hone their craft through trainings and conferences. Their years of experience provide a wealth of knowledge and wisdom that the board should be guided by. Clearly, reason, compassion, and deference are not operative factors for some members of this board. The facts are these. These three, with no background in education, sit on the board. They repeatedly, flagrantly violated the Brown Act and clearly discussed board business outside official board meetings. It is in a successful effort to fire a superintendent during his first month in office. This is extremely unbecoming behavior of a publicly elected officials. And is affront to education and experience of these passionate people you see in front of you. The real tragedy at the heart are these children of Gateway who are wittedly undeserved pawns in this effort to remake administration, promote ill-conceived political agenda. How do these actions show care for the Gateway students? To Mr. and Mrs. Haynes and Ms. Gifford, I hope the Teachers Association, California Teachers Association, has put you on the ropes. I hope you are a little uncomfortable. You should be. The people speaking against your actions are better educated, better informed, have much more experience than you do, and most importantly, care for the students. I urge you to listen to them. Your actions suggested that firing Mr. Harrell and replacing him with someone more sympathetic to your position takes precedence over the care, well-being, and education of the students of this district. This will cost the district money and could be better used to support students and will likely result in loss of truly great teachers and employees. There are a lot of eyes on this board now. You will do well to keep that in mind. Lauren.
Breathalyzer.
Thank you, Debbie. I just basically have a very brief comment. It won't even take 3 minutes. I I would appreciate if the Gateway Unified and, as others are doing, look at a full audit of the entire budget. We've had a previous superintendent here. I don't know if any budget audits have been done, but it's becoming very evident and popular to start looking at that issue, especially with the millions of dollars that are coming in from the Biden administration and all of this with the COVID on top of all the other money. This is absolutely getting ridiculous. I did see the survey that was done previously with the Superintendent James Harrell, and it didn't look good. There were some problems. So this person wasn't just asked to leave or depart or resign or whatever. Lots of issues were there. So I don't know why people are still clueless as to why he was asked to go. The last thing I want to mention is to please keep monitoring and exposing the Parents' Bill of Rights 2021. There's a 3-page handout, printout actually, and so Section 8 says the following, and I thought this is very interesting, relevant, and pertinent. It's the right to be notified of situations affecting the safety of their minor child at school. Safety has been brought up, and we're adults, so I don't know why people can't become more respectful for one another, but it goes on to say this right shall be understood to require, but is not limited to requiring, that schools notify parents or guardians in a timely manner of any of the following incidents. A, physical assaults occurring in or around school. B, sexual assault occurring in or around the school. C, appearances of weapons in or around school. By the way, this is not a school site. I do not see classrooms, students, or otherwise. So if people are coming on the premises right now with pepper spray, taser, or anything else, I don't know that there's an issue because there are not students being taught on this premises right here, right? So if there's a clarification, I would love to hear about that. D, drug use or possession in or around the school. I consider these experimental mRNA vaccine, quote-unquote, shots and whatnot as a weapon. I don't think they need to be happening on school campuses. Is there a way that this can be put together that they occur only at the retail pharmacies or public health or wherever they're doing these walk-in vaccine clinics? I hope we never have to have them happen on a school site. Now, if you've already taken a vaccine once, twice, a booster, 3, 4, are you going to keep rolling up your sleeve and taking this? I'm very concerned about a person's cognition after all of these experimental jabs. E, police investigation around the school. Well, see what I say? You can't say anything here because people want to just shut people down because they don't want to hear the actual reality. That's very sad.
Have another drink.
My Aunt Cindy is really worried about me now being up here for the 3rd time. I just want, I don't even know this lady's name, but I just want to clarify. I took that survey against Jim Harrell. I was one of the people. And I just want to clarify for everybody, that was during a contentious salary negotiation point and we were at a stalemate. And I believe that the teachers were trying to send a message to the board and to Jim that we were fed up, that we were working our butts off, we were working in dangerous times, we put our lives on the line every day coming to school, 5 days a week, remember, 5 days a week. And we were trying to send Mr. Harrell and others in the district a message. It's not necessarily that he was doing a bad job, but that he could have been doing a better job for his staff. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, don't tell Aunt Cindy about me either. I really didn't mean to be here again. But because there have been so many safety concerns raised, I'd like to address Ms. Bridgeford's comment about the fact that this is not a school campus. Any place that is used as a public, duly noticed meeting, no weapons. So, let's be clear on that. That's all.
Anyone else? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on. Item 14. Items of interest, communications, information items. The following items are for information only. We will not vote on these. So A, presentation of the district's financial statements and supplementary information with independent auditor's report, year end June 30, 2022. Is that?
Hi, I'm Beth Roberts, Director of Business Services for Gateway Unified. I'm presenting our audit from last year, school year 2021-2022. I just want people to know we are audited every single year. Those are open to the public. You're free to come read them. So just to clarify that. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to go through the 3 findings that we had as a result of that audit. The first one was ASB, which is our associated student body held at Central Valley High School. It was for internal controls, mainly just timeliness, pre-approvals needed, and the types of fundraisers that are allowed. There was a raffle, and those are fundraisers that are allowed as ASB. So ASB is driven by the students, and so that's constantly a learning process for them, so that's not something unusual that I'm finding in that area. The other one was for state compliance. We had enrolled 2 students in TK through 1st grade without an exemption or completion of immunizations, which resulted in a loss of ADA of 0.96, which is a result of about $10,800 hit to the district. And then on our independent study, we had one contract that was overclaimed 5 days on the independent study, so that resulted in about $427 to the district. So I think for a district our size and a budget our size, that was a very nominal findings for those. So you all have your audits in front of you, and findings can be found on page 100 and beyond, but if you have any questions, feel free to call me at any time, and we can go through it.
Yeah, if I could add, Madam President, as Beth stated, we're required by law to have independent audits every year. And when she refers to findings are, they're gonna go through this whole thing. I don't know how many weeks they spend with us.
They start in April and it goes all the way through the end of September.
And we're not, it's independent audit, and they're required by law that we can't just say, hey, don't do this or don't do that in the audit. I mean, they kind of tell us what they're going to look at, and they go through it with a fine-tooth comb. They interview different people, and basically what they come up with out of that is there was either no findings, which means didn't find anything, or in this case, they found 3 things, which are fairly minimal when you're talking about a multi-million-dollar budget. And they say, okay, here's what we found, and you need to correct them.
Yes.
And so that's just for verbiage out there when you hear the word findings. Those are corrections that we're aware of with the audit, and we need to correct them.
Mm-hmm.
So, just clarification.
Any other questions?
Me. Thank you. I'm sorry we had to have you so late. Didn't quite plan on this. Alrighty. Shasta County Office of Education letter, differentiated assistance eligibility. You gonna say anything about that, Steve?
I can just address it as, the state of California, when they're doing, and I might have to call on Melanie if she's out there somewhere, just in case. Differentiated assistance, what's happened in many of the school districts, and this district's no different, is they start looking and making sure, we have guidelines that show us what we have to achieve and the points, and it's all with the data, and if we have deficits in that data, basically, and we're not achieving those things, which I can honestly tell you, I think almost every district in California had deficits because of the past few years of the pandemic. They come out and they say, okay, we can work with you, and we're going to help target some of this areas that you're deficient in and help you with the students. And so that's kind of what differentiated assistance is. The county will work with us. They'll provide extra support so we can address some of the issues.
And just as we've already started kind of that process with leadership
when we started the school year, we had Sherry DePauli come in and share data and review. And we have other things scheduled in the spring to look at some of the things that Sherry shared with us.
Yeah, Sherry DePauli is who we work with, who's just a guru with data and interpreting data and then giving us basically different suggestions, strategies. Some of it might be professional development, some of it might be the hiring, trying to hire more support, those types of things.
I'll comment on one paragraph that struck me as a little bit interesting. She said, the focus will be on helping districts build internal capacity so that you can work with your own communities to develop and implement improvement strategies with guidance and support. And this is where I think it gets a little interesting. She said, rather than, quote, doing to, as in the past, the current approach is premised on doing with, because it is more likely to lead to sustained improvement, so on and so forth. And the reason I noted that is because I think a lot of people, particularly the way the COVID situation was, in my opinion, mismanaged, but we felt like they were doing something to us. I think a lot of people really felt that. I think some of the parents, some of the teachers did. And I like the tone that I'm hearing here. We'll see if it really, takes us there. But I appreciate her acknowledging that it, doing to didn't feel so good, and that we're going to do better next time. Student board member reports for Central Valley High, Bobby Alvin Rutschlitz III. Oh, I say good.
Okay, well, to start out with, I just want to say that even though our schedule for finals was a little bit off because it was somewhat weird having a final on a Friday and then Monday and Tuesday, I will say that the break was really nice being able to get out on a Tuesday instead of some schools which they pushed to like Wednesday or Thursday. That was kind of nice to get out earlier. Just a little talk. For today, I actually did a training. Thank you, Debbie, for helping me with that. I got set up and I talked to others who are in the same position as me in different Board of Educations just around California, which was very helpful, and I learned more about my position and how I better can continue my position. Just some quick announcements. There's a robotics tournament coming up at my school on January 21st, I believe. It's at 9:30 it starts, and actually, happy enough to say this, I will be emceeing this tournament. Also, our homecoming dance for basketball is happening February 4th. Oh, also, thank you so much for the flower, I appreciate that. I've seen a lot of our students also work on NWEA, try to gain their scores up so that they can be prepared for state testing in the future. And the only other real announcement is that there's an FFA speaking competition that I and 2 other of my classmates will be competing in Etna High School for job interview and creep.
All right. 16 staff reports. This is for information only. We will not vote on these. A, Classified School Employees Association, CSEA, update on classified staff representatives. Who's going to be speaking to that?
I am.
Okay.
I'm Charlene Gray. I'm the new president of CSEA. I was installed last week, actually, so I really have nothing new to report at this time, but hopefully next time we will. Thank you.
Thank you. B, Gateway Teachers Association, update by certified staff representative.
We just are members. I just wanted to say that some of our members have been concerned about the things that are going on, but we are looking forward to moving forward with the board and working in more transparent. Thank you.
School site and department updates by site administrators and directors.
So, Madam President, I was supposed to let Steve know, but he was in closed session with you, that the directors and the principals, in light of the time and the attendance and you guys as well, they'd like to put it off till next month to give reports.
Sure.
I think. We still have the student board. The student board member was given a report by Alex Lane, the principal of the high school, since she was not able to attend tonight because she was at school activities.
So I'm reading this off that she gave me. Ms. Lane and Mr. Henderson are sorry that they could not attend the meeting due to the girls' home basketball game and student recognition event. Also, I looked up the scores. We beat Anderson both times. Varsity 63-55 and JV 40-31. They'd like me to share out that our robotics tournament is Friday at the high school, starting at 9:30 and is free admission. Basketball homecoming is February the 3rd. And one of our students, another senior, Kendi Lane, is doing her official signing to play basketball at UC Merced tomorrow in Town Hall with Ethan Hansen, a sports reporter. Lastly, the site is completing their mid-cycle WASC accreditation, led by Carrie Mulrennan with the help of CVHS staff.
All right, we're going to the consent agenda. We will vote on the consent agenda items all at once, not one at a time. So call for a motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
I'll second. All right. Discussion? No discussion? All right, well then let's vote. Yes?
Yes. Aye. Aye.
Okay, so. 18, new business, discussion and/or action items. Approval of the 21-22 school accountability report cards, known as SARC.
So each year, school districts are required to update their school accountability report cards and post those. They're per site. So you're going to see, go on the web page and you can see a SARC report for each and every school in the district, and with some new information, some of it's old information. One thing that you're not going to find is some of the data, and the reason for that is, and I'll read it to you, the California Department of Education, CDE, is working on the release of all available data. They anticipate that some data will be delayed until after the February 1st due date to post our SARCs. CDE encourages schools, LEAs, to post their board-approved 2022 SARCs by the February 1st due date without the data tables populated. A second board review, approval of the missing data once populated is not required. Updated versions can be made available when all data is released by CDE. So, in other words, I don't know the reason why they haven't come out with the data. But we're waiting on California Department of Education, but it's basically a mandate that we're supposed to have these things posted by or before February 1st. So I just recommend at this time the board approve the SARC reports. We'll post those, and once we get the data from CDE, we'll populate those SARC reports at that time.
All right, I move to approve the school accountability report cards. Can I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All right, call for the motion. I vote aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Motion passes. Approval of superintendent employment contract. I make a motion that we do not approve a contract at this time.
Second.
Discussion? All right, you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And motion to adjourn the meeting?
I want to go back into close.
I'll motion that we adjourn. Second. Yes.
No, I gotta get home first and then I'll rest. Sometime. I'll be there. I got girls coming in. No, she's off tomorrow. I'll be there.
Everybody who's leaving, I do ask that you stay because I did bring up that last item probably needs to be rescinded. I'm hoping that the board obliges, so I'm just letting you know. Meeting is not closed.
They adjourned it.
So I have asked the board to rescind that last vote. I don't know if they're going to listen, but I didn't want anybody to leave.
Okay, what the discussion is that on item B, approval of the superintendent employment contract, there was a motion that was made not to approve superintendent employment contract at this time. There's a second, and it wasn't open to the public for discussion before you take the vote.
Okay, good point. Sit down.
So,
Anybody want to come up and discuss?
well, first, Madam President.
Remember what happened to Talon? Let's make it right.
I think that you'd have to make a motion to rescind that item.
I don't want to get another letter.
Anyone want to take part in a public comment about that?
Do we need to?
No.
If there's anyone in the room at this time that would like to or was planning to make a public comment about that item after the motion was put on the table, the president would reopen the meeting. But if there's no one in the room that wants to speak to that, we can reflect it in the minutes. I think the concern is protecting them from shutting the public out based on Talon Hall. So I see someone at the lectern. You'd like to speak to that?
I didn't understand what you were saying.
Do you want to further explain? Or do you?
I can try. So the motion was made not to approve the superintendent employment contract at this time. It was seconded, they voted on it. And what we're asking is, we did not allow public comment before the vote. The vote was 4-0 not to have an approval of the superintendent employment contract. So is there any public comment on that?
No.
I just want to thank you. It seems like you have represented at least the people that were here and what they were saying and their concerns and not going ahead and doing that. I'm hoping I'm not the only one that's thanking you. I'm not on either side. I'm not of this district, but just as a board, I thank you for listening. Hopefully there's just as many people that would get up and, agree with that than just continue to heckle and jive.
I appreciate that very much.
I just need to know if this is reflected in the meetings, because we have not reopened the meeting. It was adjourned, and so I just need to know if I'm including this in the minutes or if we're just having a conversation. That is not to be reflected in the minutes, because we've not reopened the meeting. We did adjourn. She said adjourn.
Yes.
So you have speakers now, so
Want me to reopen the meeting?
Yep.
All right, I'll reopen the meeting.
Okay, we're going to reopen the meeting at 11:16. We're going to reopen the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what is the contract that you're not approving? What are the terms of that contract? What's the secret?
We can't talk about that.
So basically you had a contract prepared to vote on, that I suppose has a name on
About
it.
that.
No, I'm just asking a question. That has a name on it, that has certain terms on it, and you ask for public comment on it, but we don't know who's on that contract and we don't know what the terms are?
Correct.
Okay.
Any more comments?
I'm still confused. Are we talking about a contract? You're going to give a contract to a superintendent or no?
Yes.
The vote was not to, the vote
You're
was
not-
not
you're
to
not-
approve a contract tonight, or not to approve a contract, right, at this
Okay,
time.
so you're not hiring a superintendent, so tomorrow when I go,
No, as we reported earlier, no action was taken on the
all
superintendent.
right, that's all I was asking. I thought you said you were open to it.
It's late.
It's late. It's late. No.
I'm sorry. No, I just want to know, will there be a special session called for, like in a couple days, or is this going to be passed off until the next board meeting?
Nothing's planned for a special session at this point.
Okay. Can you please keep in mind that the teachers and the staff would like to be able to attend those special meetings?
Always, always.
I don't know that some people might not have heard, and some people did get up there and touch on that. I didn't like that last meeting. I had to take off work. The attorney gave them times, I guess, and those were the times that they were available. Trust me, it was
We
not.
had no choice.
It wasn't convenient for a lot of people, including a board member that was not happy about missing work.
Yeah, and I totally get that. We all have families to support, and that's why we're here, because we love our jobs and we want to keep our jobs and we want to do the best at our jobs. This place was really packed tonight. People were outside. It's rainy, it's cold. Is it possible to have them again at Town Hall if we could get like individual headphone microphones or something like that? That might be a better option.
You want to address that?
Mr. Scott Sorrells, our IT director, if he can come to the mic, Michelle, and he can explain.
So since CB really wasn't set up to be a meeting, but since then there's 3-stage mics, and then we have a better portable system at Shasta Lake, and we tested it fully immediately after that meeting. So it should work. There'll be corded brand new mics, and then the one wireless for the audience. So Town Hall would work, and then we're also getting a quote to make it where it will be built in and we won't have to haul a system over there, but it should work much better next time if we choose. Well, I'm given at least 2 days notice, we'll spend the whole day there the day before making sure it runs flawless if we have to.
Very good. Anybody else want to speak? Can we?
I'm just happy to say thank you for not making a decision. It was so quiet when that was said that I was kind of like, what just happened? So I don't think that people aren't appreciative. If anyone's like me, I was like, does this really happen? Are we not doing this? So thank you. I know it was clear, but maybe not to me. So thank you. So we do appreciate what's happening. Thank you.
Madam President, I would like to recommend that you remake the motion and then take a vote again, now that we've heard public comment, just for the record.
Say that again.
I just think that we should redo that whole motion that you made that was to not approve the contract at this time, and hopefully get a second and retake it, because you made that before you heard public comment, and now you've heard public comment. So I just think it needs to be reflected in that.
All right, so on approval of superintendent employment contract, I make a motion that we do not approve a contract at this time.
I will second it again.
Yes.
Dale?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, okay. I vote yes.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
And now we'll have to call to adjourn the meeting. You need to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
My understanding is that I can adjourn the meeting.
If you make the motion, now we gotta put a vote, or you can adjourn it, or we can make the motion.
Yeah, I can just adjourn
I would recommend that you just make the motion a second and and we'll clarify
it.
that.
Move to adjourn.
Dale will make a motion again.
Second.
Just like we did last time.
I vote aye.
Aye. Aye.
It passes.
Okay, no, wait, no.
I know, tomorrow's gonna be bad.